And we got this knock on the door at our office. And this guy's there at the front door. And he's in like a t-shirt, shorts, and like flip-flops. So I was like thinking, like, is he somebody that lives on the street or something? Like knocking on to see what's up? Like, what's going on here? And he's like, hi, my name's David, so-and-so. Can I come in? I was at your gala. So this guy sits down. And he's just crying. And I'm like, I'm looking at my mom. My mom starts crying. And he's like, I can't stop thinking of you guys. Like, I can't stop crying. So he starts to tell us his story.
What's cooking, everybody? I am joined in the bunker today by Mr. Mike Colleluori. Mike is the co-founder of the HEADStrong Foundation and ProVantage Solutions. In this conversation, we probably spent the first 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes talking a lot about lacrosse because that is a big part of Mike's story. He was a terrific player at Hofstra in college and then thought about going pro. But then we got to what was the bulk of the podcast, and that was discussing the HEADStrong Foundation that Mike co-founded with his family, along with cancer and the battle against this horrible disease. So I'm not going to go through all the details right now, but the story behind HEADStrong is sad at the beginning, but also pretty incredible what they've done. And it does involve Mike's brother Nick, who tragically died of lymphoma back in 2006. But in Nick's short life, while he courageously battled the disease at the end, he concepted a nonprofit that would directly impact the lives of cancer patients and their families while they're battling the disease to help give them a chance to fight. And so over the past 15 years, HEADStrong, if you're not familiar with it, it is a huge charity. They have developed into this nonprofit that raises millions of dollars every year for very specific things that are far beyond just cancer research, not to take a shot at any charities that raise money specifically for research. That's very important. But HEADStrong does more than that. They directly impact the lives of these patients. And I'll let the conversation fill in the blanks there. But things like this help put a perspective on everything for all of us. Because, first of all, a lot of us, unfortunately, have known people, sometimes many people, and sometimes people very close to us, like Mike and his family, with their brother and son, Nick. You know, we've known people who battle this disease and sometimes die, and it's a horrible thing, and it's something that we want to develop a cure for. But to see people dedicate their lives to helping find that cure and helping fight back against the disease is a pretty beautiful thing, and so I'm glad we got to give that a platform on this podcast. We did also talk about some athlete management and that whole industry, which is something that Mike and his business partner, former All-Pro defensive lineman Trent Cole, are involved in at ProVantage Solutions. So I do enjoy that topic. But again, the main focus of this one is HEADStrong, and I really, really appreciate Mike coming on and sharing his story and the things that he and his family have done. It's a beautiful thing. So I will put the info for HEADStrong in the description of this episode. So I would encourage you guys to check it out. It's a pretty awesome charity. Thanks again to Mike for coming in. Now, if you haven't used the link in my description, along with the code TRENDIFIER at checkout to get $100 off either the 8 Sleep Pod Pro mattress or 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover, check it out. As I say every week, 8 Sleep is the first legitimate tech company to try mattresses. And by try, I mean they got like a B next to their valuation right now. So I think they're doing pretty well. But they're the first legitimate tech company to try it. And in the past, all we've seen is these mattress companies, not tech companies, try to put tech in their mattresses. And it just doesn't work. So what 8 Sleep does is they have a proprietary app that ties directly into the mattress or the cover, which do the same exact things. The difference is the cover is half the price. It comes in queen or king sizes. You put it right on top of your current mattress, and that's usually what I always talk about because a lot of people don't want to replace their whole mattress. So anyway, either way, you can get the mattress or the cover. But the app ties into both of them, and it measures your sleep stages throughout the night. So it measures things like your REM, your body temperature, and all the other things that I'm not qualified to talk about that allow you to continually adjust the mattress but without doing anything yourself. It's automated throughout the night such that you get a deeper sleep and wake up in the morning with a ton of energy. So as I like to say, You'll sleep 6 hours and you'll feel like you slept 8. So use that link in my description along with the code TRENDIFIER. That's TRENDIFIER at checkout, and you will get $100 off either of those products. And if for some reason, and I'm not familiar with people who've had this happen, but if for some reason you're disappointed with the product, 8 Sleep's customer service team is phenomenal, and they have a full 30-day guaranteed return policy. So just keep that in mind and give it a try. Anyway, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you're on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button, and leave a like and comment on the video if you would, please. To everyone who has been sharing the podcast with a friend who listens to podcasts each week, you guys are incredible. The word of mouth is, as I've said the past several weeks, it is the most important thing, and you guys are doing an unbelievable job. I would highly, highly continue to encourage that. It's a huge help. So if you haven't done that yet, and you have some friends who listen to podcasts and haven't listened to this one yet, if you could send them your favorite episode, or maybe the most recent one right here, to let them give it a try. I think maybe they'll like it too. So let's keep that rolling, and thank you to everyone who's done it so far, and thank you to everyone who will do it. That said, you know what it is. I'm Julian Dorey, and this is TRENDIFIER. Let's go! This is one of the great questions in our culture. Where is the nuance? You're giving opinions and calling them facts. You feel me? Everyone understands this, but few seem to do it. If you don't like the status quo, start asking questions. I gotta tell you, dude, I was kind of expecting some flow. You're a lacrosse guy.
Yeah, no, I used to, actually, if you Googled my name, you would find that I had lots of hair in my, I started 9th grade of high school, battled my pops a lot over the hair because he wasn't a fan. And funny story, we were out in Vegas as like a family trip. And
Family trip to Vegas.
Family trip to Vegas.
That's a good start.
Mandalay Bay too, which was very nice. And my dad's like, you got to get that hair off. It's all dead. Like, my dad's old school Italian. You know what I mean? All by, like, very strict household. I was in 9th grade at the time, and I was like, I'll get it cut here. Like, if you wanted me to get it cut that bad, I'll take some inches off here. He's like, go get the dead ends cut out of it, whatever. So I go into this casino, go into a salon, and the lady's like, she was a beautiful girl, and she's like, I'm not cutting your hair. I was like, well, my dad's like making me cut. She's like, I'm not touching your hair. She goes, I'll cut some of the dead out. He's like, but you need highlights. I was like, here I am as like a ninth grader. Like, I was like, whatever. Like,
wait, you were in 9th grade going to Vegas for a family vacation?
Yeah.
I like your family a lot already.
It's really cool. And so next thing you know, like, I'm just going with the flow. She's like, go in this room, take your clothes off, get in this robe. You're going to get the massage. I'm just like going along for the ride. That's kind of like, just who I am. I'm an easygoing guy. I kind of roll with it. And next thing you know, like, I got my massage. I'm in this chair. They got this foil stuff in my hair. I have no clue what's going on, right? My parents actually came looking for me. They walked right by me. They didn't even know, like, I was in the chair. And I'm just like, eyes are closed. I got one of those things over my eyes, like, relaxing. That my parents started panicking. They can't find me. Like, I finally, like, got a hold of them. I'm like, yo, listen, like, it's like $500. My dad, I thought he was going to murder me. Like, it was.
Oh, wait, so he said he was going to pay for it before you went in?
Yeah.
I missed that part.
Yeah, and he comes back. He's like, they didn't even cut your hair. What do you mean $500? I was like, listen, she said it. Her name was like Rachel or something like that. She's like, I'm not touching your hair. I'm like, I'm not cutting it. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, whatever. It's all good. But that was a interesting trip. I mean, I'm the baby of 4 boys, so like all of us were out there, and it was just.
And you came back with blonde highlights.
Very interesting. Yeah, came back with, and then I had long hair ever since. And all through college, like Bro Bible, all these groups were trying to like vote my hair as like best flow in Division I lacrosse.
It's a very like, Metallica look.
All this kind of stuff. So girls digged it, you know what I mean? And I've always been the type of just being different, you know what I mean? And when I graduated college, I opted out to do professional lacrosse. And really? I just wanted to get right into my career.
Now, real quick, what league? Because Now you have like the NLL and the PLL. I've always been a little confused by it because I don't totally follow it. I know Chaz was invested in one of them, but like at the time, was there just one league?
Two.
Or there were two then?
Major League Lacrosse.
Okay.
Funded by Jim Davis, who owner of New Balance.
Okay.
And he also had Jake Steinfeld, who started like Body by Jake. He was like a big bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And then a guy, Dave Morrow, who founded Warrior Sports. I'm sure you've seen Warrior hockey sticks, lacrosse sticks.
Oh, yes.
Manufacturer.
Yes, I've seen that.
So those guys ran the league for a while. It got to a certain extent, but I think those guys had other initiatives. One got involved with the marijuana business. Obviously, one was heavily involved with sneakers and also like charity work with obesity and things. But so I opted out to do both, like because I got drafted to do both MLL and NLL.
No, how does that work? Like, how can they both draft you?
So MLL's outdoor and NLL's indoor. Different times a year.
But did you opt in to both?
No, I just opted out. They were still trying to recruit me to play, but I was just like, listen, I've played the best lacrosse. Division I lacrosse is like the best that you can play from a team standpoint. I'm a big team guy. I love being part of teams. Even like with work, everything's team oriented. And
I think you said this. You were at Hofstra, though.
I was at Hofstra, played Lex there, and I felt like I was ready to move on. You know what I mean? Like I reached, the highest that I can go. And I felt like from a fulfillment standpoint, like I can go do this professional thing, but a lot of it is a ton of travel, not a lot of pay, and also it became like an individualized thing, and that just wasn't me, right? And I felt like I wouldn't be successful in that model, so jumped right in. And the reason why I was telling this story was I jumped right into a job at Penn, and I was managing. It's crazy. Out of college, I was managing over like 300 clinical trials in the hematology oncology department at University of Penn Abramson Cancer Center.
How'd you get that? That's like a big job.
My brother Nick's situation, right? And then the organization that I was volunteering that I now work full time for, and then got very close to Nick's doctor, who's the director of lymphoma there. Started working for him, and then I took on more and started basically all the hematology oncology lead doctors there. I was managing their studies, and I'll never forget my first meeting on Tuesdays. I had to report all the data, organize the meetings. So I'm in like this long table of all these like major doctors at University of Penn, and I had like long hair like down to this, and I never forget like some of them did have longer hair, but like it was. It was styled and cut.
They're like, who the fuck is this guy?
They were like, and as soon as the meeting was over, I called my mom up. I'm like, Mom, I think it's time to cut my hair. You know what I mean? So I ended up cutting it and donating it to like Locks for Love or one of those organizations because I'm big on charity and giving back. And so ever since then, I'm actually losing the hair now. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what happens when you get older.
Got the kids and the wife, and the hair's on the way out, but it's all good, man.
Last year, I grew it for like 15 months after COVID hit because I was due for a cut like for 2 or 3 weeks before the pandemic, and then just never did it. But it's always nice to see like the old days when you could just rock it in college. So I saw the Metallica look on there. I was like, well, that's kind of what I was expecting when you walked in.
Yeah. So that's the thing of the past, but it's all good, man.
But you didn't do any pro lacrosse. You just totally.
I did.
Told them no.
There was another league that spun out that was a little bit more like the Globetrotters, where it was like tour based, similar to like what the new. So essentially, like over the last 2-3 years, a new league has emerged with Paul Rabel and his brother Mike Rabel launched this PLL, which is Professional Lacrosse League, and they're doing a great job. They really have built like an incredible platform that has like a ton of opportunity ahead of it, and really allows players in the near future, like players professionally are going to be able to play full time and like make it a career. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not to the extent I don't ever think it. Who knows, but. I don't ever think it would reach like the NFL level of like what salaries are, but at the same time, it could get somebody like $100,000 a year and more. You know what I mean? To play the sport full time, which I think is great. Paul's done a great job with it. They have incredible investors like Joe Tsai from Alibaba and Robert Kraft, and they have like the media partner with NBC. So they've gone about this the right way. They've also have merged with the former league, the MLL, which was the Professional Outdoor League, and they acquired some of those teams and players. So I think, so back to your question, there was a group called LXM, which was basically started out of California. Two East Coast boys, Max and Xander Ritz, that went to Radnor and both played at Maryland. They were great lacrosse players. And Scott Hotstead, who runs a company now called Legends. You might see it all over the place. It's an apparel company. A lot of the NBA is involved with it. Kobe Bryant was an initial investor. They're crushing it. But they had a company called Adrenaline, and they had a thing called the West Coast Stars, which was like a lacrosse club out west in Cali. And they got some guys that had some money that were looking to invest in an opportunity, and they launched a league. And I played in that a little bit. It was a tour-based model. They basically traveled to different cities and put rosters together from guys from those cities to draw. It's crazy. I played at Radnor High School up here in PA, and Wale, before Wale took off, Wale actually performed a concert.
Oh, that's cool.
At the game, and then next you know, like I think a year later, he got signed, I think, to like Maybach Music or whatever with Rick Ross, and his whole career has just changed overnight, right? So
where's he been the last few years, though?
I think he's in Cali.
He's just chilling. There was a while there where back in the mixtape era where he was just dropping a mixtape. Like,
so he went through some.
Left and
I think what I read, I think he ran us into some issues with his label, and he was just like taking a time out to try to maybe play the game or just trying to figure things out. Now he is starting to come back with some songs. He just released some new songs recently, and they're doing well. So
wait, I got to check that out.
Yeah,
I'm a Wale fan. I haven't seen that, though.
I like Wale as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, man.
But you were saying that lacrosse signed a deal with NBC. So that which league was that again?
The new PLL. So they're streaming games out to all these kids. So I think that's huge because I don't think before they had the distribution channel to be able to reach folks that are lacrosse fans but couldn't necessarily go to a physical location. So the fact that they can sell that subscription now through NBC Sports is definitely a huge plus. And they also have some I think they have a couple of private equity firms behind them as well that have their hands in stuff.
There's a lot of big things going into this because, like, just you think numbers in your head where you're talking about, well, you know, maybe some of these guys can make $100,000 or a couple $100,000 and get to that point, and you know, the cap of it's not going to grow to NFL size, which I do agree with you. But I've been always a little bit confused by this because when I was growing up, lacrosse started to explode, you know, and you were a part of it, right? Yep. So you were there and you saw what was going on. Like it went to a very mainstream sport for kids to play. And yet from like a marketing perspective, for some reason, it's never gone to that next level where it's like, oh, we're going to watch the games now. Like it never even felt like when ESPN would air Division I games or something like that, they'd always be at like 12 o'clock on like a Saturday in non-football season, no one's watching. And I was always confused, like, how's that not going to break the barrier when it also seemed like more kids were playing lacrosse than baseball?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, especially at the amateur level, like the youth level, the sport just took off. I mean, there's a 70% crossover from a hockey player to a lacrosse player. And
is that high?
Yeah, and there was just a huge, and it's still growing. I think the club side of things has definitely taken off over the last 6-7 years. Seems like it might be plateauing a little bit because folks were getting in it. They didn't necessarily realize like how to actually operate, or their kid graduated and they just kind of moved on. But the sport definitely is sustaining in participation goes. There's a lot of kids that still play, and it's a great sport because it's got the physical side. You know what I mean? It's got a little bit of everything in it. Where it's not like football where like you're slamming every single play, but there is contact. You know what I mean? And then it's also a mix. To me, it's like a little bit of like basketball, hockey, and football kind of combined, and even a little soccer. Like if you're an athlete, and that's why like a lot of the great Division I lacrosse coaches and coaches in general like preach to the youth players to be like a multi-sport athlete because the sport itself like is such a crossover to so many other sports. And the reason why I loved it was because you didn't have to be like in basketball if you want to be a center. You know what I mean? How high, how tall do you have to be? If you want to be if you want to be successful in football, and I want to be an offensive lineman, like I got to be 300 something pounds. Like lacrosse, Matt Rambo, who's the best player in the professionals right now, offensively is like my size, if not smaller.
I think lacrosse and hockey, you can do that because you know you can have in hockey you can have the big defenseman, then you can have the quick left winger or something like that. And
Yep.
it's kind of the same in lacrosse.
Yeah. So, and U.S. Lacrosse just announced a new president who actually went to Hofstra, which is cool. This week, new president there.
That's
So
cool.
they kind of regulate and govern the youth side of things, and they try to help like the high school side as well. And they have some. They also do like the world teams and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely
What's
some
adoption
good
like in
stuff.
other countries, though?
It is. It's growing.
I never asked about that.
growing like crazy.
Really?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Joe Tsai, who's co-founder of Alibaba, he's doing a lot in Hong Kong. There's a lot of stuff like there's the World Games, which is active, and I'm like lacrosse. It's like weird. Like I love teaching it. I'm not like a huge like I gotta watch the game kind of a guy. I've kind of drifted on my interest. Have gone in a different direction, but like I love teaching the sport. You know what I mean? That's kind of like my way. I don't play anymore, so like my way to kind of stay connected is to grow the game, and I think the best way for me to do that and to get fulfillment is to teach it, because a lot of times, like anything, like in lacrosse, the smallest little change of like where a kid puts their hand is like could be the difference in them catching and throwing. You know what I mean? So I'm over here in Jersey. I started the lacrosse club here. I also have like a program that we launched called Head Start, which is like for little kids, 3 to 7 year olds. My daughters are in it, and just having kids run around. But it's been cool because we have a group of kids that keep coming back, and which is great. You know what I mean? There's a lot of soccer players over here. Trying to convert those soccer players into lacrosse players because they're great athletes.
Are they're playing lacrosse in the spring though out here, right?
Spring in like your recreational high school, but clubs 365 now. So
Wow.
yeah, we have I operate with HEADStrong. I think we have 7 clubs now and operate in different states. But yeah, it's a year-round thing.
Do you think like the pressure on kids so young because of how competitive it is, and I like competition, so I hate the fucking participation trophy culture and all that. So competition's good, but do you think that they're making them pick a sport, like a sport, way too early? I feel like I hear younger and younger kids like, oh, I do X year round. I don't do anything else. You know what I mean? And then I feel like a lot of them burn out.
Yep.
Once it gets to, you're 15, 16, maybe you didn't grow as much as another kid, or you get a little less good. You've been doing this forever, and now it's like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I think it depends on the parents. You know what I mean? A lot of times, we typically see at the middle school years when a kid will actually make that transition. They really want to commit to lacrosse or whatever their sport might be. Some sports it's earlier because you have to get in earlier just because of the way the system works. But I mean, we preach all the time, that you should be a multi-sport athlete, that you should play other sports. We typically, and we complement that by, like in the fall, we'll only run sessions on like Sundays, so that way they could do their fall sport during the weekend on Saturdays. A lot of times on Sundays,
That's good.
they have church in the morning, but outside of that, they're pretty much open besides Eagles games. So we typically try to, and we also have a lighter fall. Like we have a lighter schedule in outer seasons. Our main season for club is in the summer, and that's where a lot of the tournaments are for recruiting standpoint and just in general. So summer's heavy, but fall is a little light. We do some trainings throughout the year, but we try to complement other sports and not necessarily put
That's good.
parents in that predicament, that situation to say like, we're not that type. That's not who HEADStrong is. Now, I can't speak for other programs because they do this for a living. Like HEADStrong's a nonprofit. These other groups are for-profit, so it's their livelihood. So their strategy and the way they go about business is different,
Yeah, I've actually never had to say this before, but you're talking like over the mic over here, so just keep that,
Gotcha.
like in front of you and keep it pointed towards you a little bit.
That sounds good.
Other than that, that's good. But when you were growing up, though, it sounds like your whole family was into lacrosse. So, were you one of the ones who picked it by middle school and you were just doing all lacrosse, or were you still playing other sports too?
So my brother Nick and I were the first lacrosse players in the house. My 2 older brothers were soccer, swimming.
Got it. So you guys were different.
3rd grade, got introduced to it from a neighbor, Michael Hagan, who's like a mentor of mine. And Mike gave me a stick and was just like, yo, try this out. And when I was in 3rd grade, I'll never forget, like that day, we lived across the street from a park in Delaware County. And my brother Nick and I ran into my parents. We're like, we're going to play lacrosse. We're going to get full scholarships to play Division I lacrosse. And my parents are like looking at us like, what's lacrosse?
What is lacrosse?
And my dad's like, just typical my dad. He's like, you get a scholarship, I'll buy you a car. I was like, shake on it. And so that actually happened. You know, I was fortunate enough to, you know, play for a great youth and high school at that time, because club lacrosse really wasn't a thing. There was only like 2 clubs, 3 clubs in the area. But yeah, no, I was able to, you know, that was a dream of mine. It came true, and my dad actually did have to buy me a car.
What kind of car?
A Lincoln LS.
All right.
Yeah, I was cruising.
You're riding in style.
Right. Yeah, people think it was an older car, but I loved it. Nice leather seats, nice system. You know?
My grandpa actually bought a Lincoln. He never bought one before, but he got one a few years ago. And I'm not going to lie, it's a great car.
Ride smooth, V8.
Great.
Yeah.
Underrated. But your brother Nick and you, were you like the same age, or was he a couple years older than you?
A year ahead of me.
Got it. And so did he get a scholarship for lacrosse too?
He did, yeah. Not full scholarship, but he did get a scholarship.
And he went to Hofstra with you?
Yeah, went there together.
And so that's the interesting part of your story, though, because, you know, you guys were tied by this sport and everything, and then I'd like you to tell it, but your brother got lymphoma, I think, when you were, like a freshman?
Yep. So freshman year, second weekend, my coach, John Danowski, who's the coach at Duke now, had, like, Nick and I battling at every practice. Like, he was a defender, I was an offensive player. So he was crushing my arms, like every ground ball drill, and just every drill we were one-on-ones. And the Colleluori brothers, get up. Like, so, you know, he was kicking my ass. But I'll tell you what, it was a great 2 weeks. September 21st, that was a Wednesday, 2005. My best friend from actually back here, Evan, had passed away from bone cancer. And we were kind of anticipating that. So when I got the phone call, like, if my parents were there, I was like, they're here to tell me about Evan, right? Come to find out, that was the same day we were getting, like, outfitted from STX, and I think it was Brian Lacrosse at the time. They were outfit, like, we were selecting in the catalog what sticks we want, what gloves we want, helmets, all that stuff, which was really cool. And we used to call it Christmas because it was just like they used to dump equipment on us and stuff. So my coach was like, you know, before you place your order, can you come up to my office? So I was like, yeah, no problem. And I was like thinking, like, okay, they might need help with something carrying stuff down to the locker room. And my parents were in the office. So I was like, I immediately thought, like, shit, they're gonna tell me about Evan passing away, because he had a sarcoma, like a bone cancer, and he had a relapse, basically. He had to get his leg amputated. He was just like in a bad shape. But me and him were really, really close, and got even closer when he got sick. But next thing you know, like, my brother Nick was there, and he looks at me, and I could tell by his face, like, something's up. And he's like, I have cancer. And I was like, what? And we were, like, we knew that, like, he was getting tests done for his adenoids, because they thought that he had something wrong with, like, his allergies. It was more like, they were just he was at an ear, nose, and throat specialist to get some further evaluation on his adenoids, which were, like, enlarged in the nose.
What's an adenoid?
It's tied into, like, the lymphatic system, and it's a part of, they thought it was, like, allergy related. Come to find out, he had an aggressive form of cancer, given 3 months to live. And he looked at me and was like, I have cancer. I was like, I was just like, what? Like, no way. Like, that's...
Wasn't he practicing with you, like, a day before?
Yeah. So he was up there with me. My parents came up. And what's crazy is, like, when you're 18 years old, the doctors have the right to just call you and tell you the news, because you're an adult now. You're not a minor. So my parents called the doctor and said, can you give us until tomorrow to get up to New York to be there with Nick, and we want to tell him the news. We don't want you to tell him over a phone. So, like, my parents showed up, they told Nick, and then I walked in, they told me that, then literally, like, 5 minutes later, I get told Evan passed away. Oh. It was just like, my feet were just, like, ripped out from underneath of me. I was like, wow, like, just, like, ran into a wall. You know what I mean?
Nick, so he had stage 4 cancer? And right away, 3 months to live?
3 months to live. They never seen a tumor like this before. It was like a small tumor in his adenoid, which is, like, right in your nose area. So he came back here and got evaluations from all these different hospitals, CHOP, Penn, Hopkins, MD Anderson, Sloan, like all these places, and everyone agreed with the same treatment. So he ended up getting treated at Penn, and he lasted 14 months. During that 14-month process, the dude was just like on another level mentally. Like his mental toughness was just insane. And like I only saw him cry like one time during the whole entire thing, 14 months. But he was way beyond his years, and he saw a theme. Like there was all these patients and families that were just going through all these different hardships, but he started to like have a lot of conversations with these folks, and Penn kind of used him as like a poster child to talk to patients that were like suicidal and families that just needed a lift for the day.
The doctors were asking him to talk with other patients?
Patients, yeah. So he would go around and meet with a bunch of different patients and share his story and just try to lift people up. Started like train. They thought he was like going to train for like a triathlon. He's doing like with his chemo pole. He's doing like laps around like the floor at Penn. He was in for a transplant for like 34 days straight.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he actually almost died. They double dosed him on a drug, and his whole body swelled up like a balloon. It was insane. That's a whole nother story. But lasted 14 months. But during that 14-month journey, he started to like hear the same issues, the financial issues, the emotional toll it takes on you, the residential situations that people are living out their cars, like literally living out of their cars in order to come to Philly for treatment.
Wait, cancer patients are living out of their cars?
Yeah, and their families. Yeah, insane, dude. It's insane. Like,
can I ask about that? Like how that financing works and everything? Because I've seen some, and I know it varies and it can get crazy, but I've seen some of the numbers that people have to pay, like if they go through 12 months of chemo, like on and off, something like that. It'd be like $100 grand, $200 grand, whatever. Like, is it like a house loan? Like you have to pay a principal? Like how does that even work?
You have to pay a portion back. I mean, you have health insurance, but it only goes so far. Plus, my brother Nick's situation was he was in limbo because he was transitioning to, he was 19 diagnosed. So technically, like, he wasn't under my parents' policy anymore. Then my parents couldn't get insurance for him. It was insane. I'll tell you this.
Doesn't that last till you're 20? Oh, that was before then.
Yep.
Shit.
So the last month that he was alive, October of 2006, his medical bills were $250,000
for the month.
For the month. Yep.
For what?
I mean, this is the
what
leading
kinds of things.
This for all the care, for all the medicine, the medicines he was on, the infusions, the blood transplants.
So he was doing all that.
Doing all that stuff. I mean, this is like the leading cause of bankruptcy in our country right now, and cancer is projected to be the leading cause of death. It was actually by, I think, 2020 was going to surpass heart disease. And the government makes so much money. I mean, it's $1 trillion industry, you know. And what I learned, what was interesting when I was at Penn, which is one of the reasons why I left, because I was like collecting the data and seeing what was going on. And even just having, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of pharmaceutical reps. Drugs were being engineered for like maintenance. They weren't being engineered to cure.
Wait a second. You're saying that they were not actively trying to cure the disease?
Yes, they're creating drugs that would basically keep you alive longer.
The whole pharma industry.
Correct.
Has that changed today?
I mean, there's a new movement of immunotherapy, which is like using your T cells.
Yeah, that's CAR T therapy.
CAR T therapy. I was a part of that with Carl June and Dr. Porter when I worked there. And that's a new way of going about things. But a lot of the drugs that were being implemented when I was there were more maintenance related. It was just like, okay, you get cancer. We're going to try like the traditional stuff with like chemos and transplants. If that doesn't work, like, then it's the drugs that were being manufactured were more or less maintenance, because that led to more side effects, more problems, led to them creating more medicine, which makes more money. I mean, you look at it, like how quickly did they come up with a vaccine for COVID? You know, you're talking 6 months, maybe.
It was like 8.
Yeah. I always think like if they really wanted to cure cancer, or I'm not saying that they could cure every cancer, but like if they really wanted to tackle some of these things. And not to say that there's doctors that aren't out there, not to take away or discredit
sure
what doctors have done over their history and what they're doing now. Because like I did work with doctors that were like this, they were like married to it. They had no life beyond it, you know, but there's also limitations to what they can do and how they can operate, which I think held them back. But deep down inside, I do think that if the government really wanted to fix cancer, they could. I really do think that. But if you look back, there's always a disease that dominates the human race. You know what I mean? And cancer seems to be, you know, that one that's leading the charge right now, you know?
It's fucking crazy when you think about the fact that chemo, and I know they've adjusted it over time and things, but that therapy, quote unquote, say that with major air quotes, it's been around forever now, right? We're still doing the same thing as the main course of treatment for someone who doesn't have a tumor that can be immediately removed. It's too big. We're still doing the same thing that essentially, I mean, it kills your entire body. So people, the respect I have for people that have found a way to survive the disease.
Insane.
And then be able to have some normalcy maybe like a decade later. Like maybe they can work out like a horse again. It's insane to me because essentially their whole body was killed off for whatever it was, a year, chemo, 2 years, whatever it was. And then they had to rebuild it. And it's like, you're never going to be whole again, you know?
And then the chances of a secondary cancer like goes up significantly. So some time down the line, you're going to get something else, most likely. Like your chances, like I think you go up to like I could be wrong, but like I think you go up to like 70% of in your lifetime getting re-diagnosed with a secondary cancer. The other thing too is like what you just said to add on to that. Most people die from complications that the chemo and drug do to your body. Like my brother Nick died of kidney failure. His body just couldn't regulate the drug out of his system anymore. You know, eventually your organs get tired. You know what I mean? They're in there, they're putting these drugs in your system that are depleting your entire immune system. And the effects, like radiation alone never leaves your body. So like we work with a lot of patients who literally are like lose all their teeth, and have crazy problems with their mouth and jaws and nutrition and things like that because the radiation that they got, 15 years ago because of the cancer that they had. You know, there's so many.
How do they make that decision, by the way? I should know that.
What's
but like
that?
You hear about people who do chemo or they'll do radiation. What goes into which one you're going to do there? Decision?
So like most cases, it's like a hybrid model where they'd start out with chemo to try to get things under control. And then they mix in radiation. Now, there are some better options of radiation, like proton beam therapy and things like that. Problem with that is there's only like 4 or 5 institutes in the country that have it. Penn's one of them. So people travel. Like when I worked at Penn, the founder of Adidas was one of my patients. I had the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays as my patient. The guy who started Dollar Tree was one of my patients. Not his wife was my patient. Now, I can't speak to those names, but like it's crazy. Yeah. People travel in, especially at Penn, from all over the world to come here.
What are the big? There's Penn, there's MD Anderson, there's Hopkins, and then Sloan Kettering.
Yeah,
are those
Sloan Kettering,
and then the big ones.
California, there's City of Hope, which is a big one. There's Cleveland Clinic, which is a good one. A lot of these larger groups too are starting affiliation programs with smaller networks, healthcare networks, things like that. I've been so removed that I haven't been there. May of 2011, I left Penn. I was actually, so my original path was this.
Oh, you were there a while though.
I was there for like three years. I was working for Dr. Schuster. I was running the foundation, HEADStrong Foundation, but I was also in a post-bac program, getting eligible for medical school because I was originally out of college thinking of getting into medicine. I wanted to become like a doctor.
You're motivated by this experience,
and that was like where my focus was. And I have my names on studies in the New England Journal of Medicine. I was looking at things under microscopes. I scrubbed into like so many different procedures, bone marrow aspirations, all different types of things. I would just scrub in at procedures at Penn, and a lot of them were obviously the patients that I was working with.
Wait, quick question on
Shoot.
that. When you say patients you were working with, because that's like the third time you mentioned that. When you started this, you were saying that you were running the studies there. I think like over 300 clinical trials. You said something like that. So you're saying within the context of those studies, you were also boots on the ground with the individual patients. You weren't just managing what was happening as far as the data collection.
Yeah, because I was responsible for the data, so I had to make sure that these patients were getting their labs, whether they were in the hospital or at home in their community. Also, too, like I was the doctor's right-hand man, so a lot of times they would hit me up if they couldn't get a hold of him because his schedule, he would see like 40-something patients a day. We would be there. I would train in. I'd be there like 8 a.m. I would be there till 11, 12 o'clock at night working with this guy. And I felt like it was an honor because he was he's a good mentor and friend of mine. Like I can call him today if I have a problem with my kids, myself, he'll answer instantly. That's Dr. Great. Schuster, he's amazing. He travels the world and speaks on lymphomas. But a lot of times he's very unorthodox in his approach as far as how he treats medicine. He's the one doctor, and I'm kind of biased because I worked for him, but like he was a doctor and still is. I think it's why he's been so successful in keeping people alive for long periods of time, is he lets the disease tell him what to do. He doesn't necessarily give you extra treatment just because the book says to. You know what I mean? He goes about things in a way that, to me, logically makes sense. And he also has an incredible bedside manner. Well, he'll sit with you for 2 hours if you want and talk about your kids or whatever you want to talk about, everything besides cancer. And had such an incredible... I mean, you speak to his patients, they love him. They love him. And he would see 40 of them a day, you know? It was just insane. So a lot of times those patients would be emailing me or calling me to find out.
40 cancer patients a day.
A day, yeah, at Penn, yeah. Yeah. And like he was booked for probably like, you couldn't come see him for like 3 to 6 months because his days were so one patient to the next, to the next, to the next. But yeah, it's insane. Now they're starting to try to find better ways at allowing patients to receive care in their communities. You know what I mean? But
what do you mean by that?
Like being treated, like getting your blood drawn or getting your blood or getting chemo at like your local hospital. So I can go to like Inspira, you know what I mean? Or virtual here in South Jersey instead of training in or traveling into Philly. It makes it a little bit more convenient.
I guess because the actual treatment itself, it doesn't matter technically. I shouldn't say that, but it is when you're talking about like why people go to these places, go to see the best doctor, they're there to get the course of action, but that doesn't mean the doctor needs to stand there while the course of action,
correct.
Some of it
he basically builds or she builds the game plan, but the drug can be administered anywhere, you know. One of the biggest things that I saw, and I've been doing HEADStrong, so I work directly with patients like all the time for the last 15 years. We've assisted over like 20,000, but a lot of times folks, especially like if they're not near like a Philadelphia area that has a great hospital or hospitals, Chop's great, Jeff's great,
amazing
Temple's great,
Philly.
Yeah, Penn's awesome. Like folks that aren't near there, they'll literally go to like, and not to knock it, but like they'll go to like a Crozier hospital, right? And they'll get evaluated there. And when you first get diagnosed with cancer, like that's your best chance of survival is your first. As soon as you put drug in your system, that's your first chance to get into a remission. I always say remission. Some people say cured. But what I always saw was we'd have patients that would come in that were misdiagnosed, mistreated, right? So they already had drug in their system. And then next, like we couldn't do anything for them for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And because we had to let that drug deplete out of their system. Then they would come in and they would have to get all new imaging, all new scanning done. So I always advise people, and if anyone's listened to this, God forbid you have a health situation, cancer or not, like try to find the best and just figure out a way to get there. Because that's your best chance, and you really got one shot at this thing. Because if not, you're waiting, especially on the cancer front, what I've seen, you're waiting 2, 3, 4 weeks to get an appointment, and then you're waiting on top of it for the drug to get out of your system. For them to then, you know what I mean? It totally derails the entire process. So that's kind of something that I've seen for so long. And some folks just don't have the means. I mean, that's the other trap. The problem is, and that's why HEADStrong exists, to try to help people get accessibility and it basically addresses accessibility and affordability.
So what kinds of things do you guys do? And if I understand this correctly, you guys have raised over $20 million?
$20 million, yep.
Wow.
Started from my brother Nick was getting a procedure done. He was getting his port put in and getting wheeled in a bed to the procedure, and asked my mom for a pen and paper. He drew our first logo, came up with our mission, short-term, long-term goals.
So he's the one who came up with it.
Headstrong, yeah, it's his nickname. His nickname was Head as a kid because he had a big head, and he was just he had at that time he was pulling a lot of inspiration from Lance Armstrong, who had Livestrong at the time, and so he's like, Headstrong. I'm gonna call it Headstrong. I'm going to impact. I want to teach athletes about, giving back, and I want to rally my lacrosse brothers and sisters to help me do this. And we're going to be a voice for the patients, and we're going to provide direct services to patients. So what the organization does is it improves lives affected by cancer, and we do that through financial, residential, and emotional services. That's kind of like how we operate, and those services are all different as far as the programming within those services.
So financial, I assume that would mean basically giving people grants to pay for any cancer-related costs. Okay.
Yep.
Residential, what do you mean by that?
Residential, so we have a facility in Delaware County, in right next to Swarthmore College. It's an 8,000 square foot home. It's called Nick's House. And it is similar, like to the general public, you would think it's similar to like a Ronald McDonald house, right? But different. And how we're different is it's long-term stay. So the average person stays with us for 6 to 8 weeks. There's no charge. It's free of charge. Has all the accommodations that a house has.
How many people can stay at a time?
8 families.
Wow.
Yep. So it's families defined by a caregiver and the patient.
Okay.
And we have laundry, we have Wi-Fi, we have television, we have services there for the patients, as far as yoga goes and different therapies, art therapy. We have dogs come and visit. That is all ages, all cancers. People come in from all over the world to stay there.
How do you select people for this?
The social workers submit applications, and then we have a process with background checks and all different types of things. But the house is a revolving door. We have to turn people away all the time because there's just not enough space in the house. But the house is really cool. I mean, the Ronald McDonald house is different. It's like a 3 to 4 day stay. The patient can't stay there. There's a fee to stay there. And that's really just to kind of give people...
Wait, the patient can't stay there?
At Ronald McDonald House, the patients don't stay there. They're in the hospital being treated.
Oh, okay.
Where ours is and that's the thing too with us, the caregivers can just be their house, but a lot of times the patients are staying with the caregiver at the house. So it's a really cool concept that we're going to be expanding to like New York, Boston, and Baltimore. Is kind of like the vision of our Nick's House project. And then we have a program. We have we focus a lot on mental health. So we do a lot of stuff. We do stuff virtually. We do stuff in the hospitals. So at Pen and Chop, we'll go in. We have guest speakers. We sponsor like motivational speakers to go in. Joe Conklin goes in and does a skit.
Most underrated voice guy ever.
Right?
He's hilarious.
Vince Papali goes in and shares his story.
Great guy.
So we have people like that. Some stuff is streamed through Zoom. Some stuff is in person. We also within that category, we have a program called Head Table. Head Table offers food. Basically, it's a program that we have in partnership with Rastelli's, and we offer on Thanksgiving, usually like December 15, 16th. We usually we feed basically the entire Rhodes Pavilion at Penn.
Wow!
So we feed about 500 people, patients, families, all staff.
You guys do a lot.
It's insane.
There's a lot of different things.
It's insane. Yeah, it's like you're constantly juggling a lot, and we do it on the backs of like 12 full-time employees. We have it, but at the same time, we have a lot of volunteers. We really count on it takes a village to operate.
Absolutely.
And and that's the cool thing that like I love about Headstrong is the fulfillment that you get when you're able to help somebody. Like that's my whole thing is. I'm a giver, not a receiver, and I just love helping people. Being able to like, it's not about one person at Headstrong. It's not about someone's ego. It's not about the CEO of the company. It's like it's one big family, and we all make an impact every day. So it's really cool, and we're very involved in sports. So we use sports as our vehicle to tell our story and to basically activate and empower people to share our story or get involved or fundraise. Then we channel the funds back to the mission.
But your brothers started this, like just drawing the logo. That's a crazy story. It's beautiful. But he starts this while he's basically dying from cancer.
Yeah.
And how long was that before he actually died? Like how many months?
It was 14.
Oh, months. So right at the beginning.
So he in May of 2005. He kind of conceptualized the idea
right away, like almost.
So he was diagnosed in September of 2005. In May of 2006. Right.
Okay.
The following spring lacrosse season, he had the idea, and then in October, he passed on November 28th. The last thing he said, he passed away in my arms, at our house. My dad and I were holding him. One of the last things he asked us was like, guys, like I want you to really do Headstrong. So like my family, it was so weird. Like,
so it wasn't. It was just it was still an idea then that he had, but it hadn't like started.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
And then the lacrosse club started first with a tryout, and the two guys that were helping him out with that, Mike Holloway and Chris Bryan, full court press, made that happen. And so the lacrosse club in Philly kicked off. Then like a few months later, my mom and I incorporated Headstrong and as a nonprofit and got our 501c3 about a year later because it takes a while. But I was like pushing T-shirts out of my college dorm, selling lime green T-shirts at $15 a pop. And then my coach called my mom and I one day. He's like, why don't we do a Nick Colleluori Classic lacrosse tournament? So we hosted 4 teams at our local high school in Ridley. That grew to 18 teams, grew to a 2-day tournament. And then now those tournaments operate on college campuses, and the facilities operate them, and all the teams involved still fundraise. It's just insane. I mean, you're talking like hundreds of events a year, big major online fundraising, like crowdfunding goes on. Like we have a cool campaign coming up called Lax Madness. Like you're talking thousands of college lacrosse players grow their mustaches out. And last year,
that's awesome.
In 1 month, they raised $500,000.
Wow,
insane!
All proceeds to the Headstrong.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and my brother Pat serves in a development capacity. He's on our fundraising. He kind of spearheads our fundraising team with Jeff Baxter.
So it's a full family affair, it sounds like.
So my mom and I are at the top. We manage it. And then underneath of us, Pat's on our development side. He does a lot of the fundraising when we have a team of people with him. And then we have an administrative and operational team. So, my mom kind of handles finance and donors, and I kind of juggle the rest. But it's a good partnership because my mom's very conservative and I'm very entrepreneurial. So it's like it's a good partnership that we have.
Yin and a yang.
Yeah, and about 4 years ago, we had a really cool exercise that we did. We kind of figured out what we do best, and we all kind of got in the right position and the right roles. And so it's been great, and we've been growing every single year. It's been insane.
Well, you were starting with just T-shirts, but did you, not to say you concepted everything you have now, I know that's not what it is, but was there any thought early on, like, okay, if that's like 2006 or something, 2007, okay, by 2010, we're going to be doing these two things? Or did it just kind of...
It just kept growing, and about 5 years in, our board at the time, we were having board meetings at our local high school. Like, we didn't even have an office or anything. My mom and I turned a bedroom into an office, and we were working full-time jobs, and I was obviously working as a college student doing this. And about 5 years in, it was all volunteer up until about 5 years. I was the first full-time employee. The board was like, I think we got something here. Like, it was family and friends. Like, this thing keeps growing. Like, what's going on here? So we were just selling merch and had like 1 or 2 events. One was like beef and beer, and one was a small lacrosse tournament. Our first year, we did $67,000. And then I joined full time. Then my brother Pat joined full time. Then my mom joined full time. And then we've been slowly building from there. But like up until about like maybe 6 years ago, we didn't even have a business plan. We were just rolling.
It just kept growing.
Just growing. Like so many groups and people wanted to get involved.
So like when did the house come in, and Nick's house and stuff like that?
So about 2000 and I think it was 11 or 12, my dad was like, we were sitting around dinner and my dad was like, remember that my dad basically was going to the park. My dad's whole thing was, my dad loves to cook, and he's a great cook. Doesn't follow any recipes, but like the dude can go in your refrigerator right now, grab stuff, make something, and you'd be like, wow, like how did you do that? You
need people like that.
You'd be like, how'd you do that? And he'd be like, I can't tell you. This is what he says, right? But the old school Italian guy, my dad's whole thing was like, Nick, you're never going to eat hospital food. I will go home from work every day. I will cook you a home cooked meal, and you will eat my food. Like that was my dad's commitment to Nick, to keep. That was like his way to just help Nick, right? And Nick loved his food, and I do too.
Yeah.
My wife and I were actually talking about this the other day, how he could just whip things up. But so my dad's like the mayor. Everyone loves him, and he talks to anybody. Talk to complete strangers, and loves people. And so he got friendly with another dad whose kid was going through a situation of cancer at the hospital, and they were inpatient for a while. My dad was going to the parking garage. Dude was like having a complete meltdown, right? Crying hysterically. My dad recognized him, was just like, "Yo, what's going on?" Guy's like, "Well," he's like, "I don't have any money to pay for the parking. We're living out of my car." And he had kids with him, living out of the car. So my dad was like, "Whoa, time out. What do you mean?" So these people came back to my house and stayed at my house. And my dad paid
This is while Nick's getting treatment.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad paid for his parking bill. And so fast forward now to like 2011, I think it's 2011, my dad was like, "Remember that guy that we met, that family we met, that we helped out? If we can just get like a one-bedroom apartment in the city, like that would be so sick, because we'd be able to help people and give them the ability to stay." So my mom and I went, like just like the way we are, went around the whole city, couldn't find any places. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's transient." We had a guy who was a supporter of ours, owned a lot of real estate in the city. He was willing to give us an entire floor of one of his places. It was like, I think 20-something rooms, but the condo association turned it down. He was gonna rent it to us for $1 a year, and because he's a survivor of cancer, and
Wow.
So we went through this whole process, and we ended up getting shot down from the condo association in Philly. So we just kept at it. So
what was that like? Hold on. Let's sidebar there real fast. So you have a guy who's a cancer survivor.
And he's a very, very wealthy individual.
Who wants to donate 20 rooms to people battling for their lives.
Yes.
And a condo association turned that down.
Turned it down. They said it was transient and against their bylaws. Yep.
Now, let me back up for 1 second here. All right, I'm gonna put on my money hat for a second, and let's just say that hypothetically, if people were coming, and this is not how I would look at it, I'm just playing a hypothetical.
Yeah.
If people were coming in to look to buy one of the condos or something, and they find out that like an entire floor, even though that's very nice, there's cancer patients, an entire floor is filled with people who are out late at night sometimes, stuff going on all the time because they're fighting for their lives literally, and they're like, "This is really nice, but we don't want to live here." Maybe the condo's saying that. What I would challenge that with, though, is that there would, like, from a human being standpoint and from a goodwill standpoint, you can't tell me that there wouldn't be a market of people going, "Holy shit, this place is doing that for people. I want to live here."
Yep, I know.
It's fucked up, man.
It's crazy. And I got some crazy stories for you, man. Livestrong tried to shut us down. We had a lawsuit with Livestrong for a long time.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
That was insane. And my mom and I were like, "Nope." They wanted us to change our name. They wanted us to take the word strong. So they had a legal group of like 9 million. They spent like $9 million a year on these lawyers. They would literally like govern the word strong. They thought that they owned the word strong. And other organizations actually changed their name. They took the word strong out of their name. And my mom and I were like, "We're not changing the name."
And they're still, by the way, they're still technically around.
They are.
But let me ask about that. Like, how do you know how much they've decreased?
I don't really know much, about the organization has done great things. You know what I mean? And take the bad stuff out of what Lance did. I mean, he still has impacted and helped a lot of people. You know what I mean? So I always try to look at the good in situations. That's just who I am. Very positive person. So like, and also too, like my brother Nick was one of those people like that. Nick wore the bracelet, and so did I for the longest time.
I just got to ask about this though, because you said that earlier and I didn't want to stop you because you were going into a few other things. So I'm glad we came back to it. But, I guess the whole Lance thing happened in like 2012 or 2013 where he admitted everything.
Yeah.
your brother was one of the many who took such inspiration from that and didn't make it, or then people who took inspiration from it and made it.
Yep.
So you are directly a witness to that, and that obviously impacted you as well. So like when you see something like that, because fair or unfair, he was the face of the organization.
Yep.
Like that, Lance Armstrong is Livestrong. I mean, does that just crush you? Because the guy was, let's call it what it was. He was, even if they all were in cycling, I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Still a fraud.
Yeah. I mean, it still happens today, though, in pro sports.
Oh, yeah.
All the time, you know? And I think that, I'm all about the right thing. Do I agree with everything that he's done? No. But I think that, you know, it's not easy to, in a philanthropic world, nonprofit, to start a nonprofit and to be successful is like, you're fighting an uphill battle every single day, you know? And I think if you can find success, there's something to be said about what he was able to do with the organization. He was able to use this, like my brother Nick was all about like use your platform for good. And we preach this a lot at Headstrong. My employees talk about it a lot. Like use your platform. If you're an athlete or whatever you're involved with, and whatever, it doesn't necessarily have to be Headstrong, but use that as a voice. Be a voice. Use it as a platform for good. So like I thought he was successful in using his platform in the position that he was in to be a voice for folks that were battling for their lives. And I think there's something to be said about that, you know, whereas the media always takes the negative side because they know that's what sells. And you see it now with COVID. It's just insane. So like, you know, to me, I don't necessarily agree with what he did, but that was his decisions. But I definitely think that he was able to positively impact a lot of people's lives. And that organization, believe it or not, even though he's been dismissed from it for a while, is still working to help people, you know? And
did they raise a lot of money?
I don't really know. I know they went through a change of different directors. The one director that, executive director that took over left, who I thought was going to like, you know, take the ball by the court and take it to the next level. He left and went to another organization that's involved with cycling. But I don't really know. For me, it's like I'm very big on just kind of staying focused on kind of what I'm involved with, and I don't really get involved, you know, with the outside noise.
So you also didn't take it too personally when they were suing you for years?
Nah, nope. I mean, and fortunately, you know, I constantly preach to stay focused on what we're doing because I know what we're doing is right. And eventually, we were very fortunate enough to have great attorneys that supported us through the whole entire thing. And eventually they went away. Believe it or not.
They pulled off the suit.
Yep.
I'm trying to pull up their financials behind you, by the way, while you're talking.
But other organizations were calling us, like saying, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? We're like, nothing. We're going to continue to operate the way that we are. There's not a conflict of interest. They don't own the word strong.
That's crazy.
And we're going to continue to do what we're doing. We're fulfilling our promise to our founder, which is, my mom would say her son, I would say my brother. And we're just, you know, we're relentless in our efforts, and we're going to just stay focused there. But no, it's definitely there's been a lot over the last 15 years. There's been a lot of different interesting things that have come across my desk that would discourage people. But when you do the right thing, you just keep pushing forward.
Like what kind of things?
Recently, we had a situation with our Nick's House initiative, right? So going back to Nick's House, right? So this is something I wanted to tell you, which is insane. This is how much my parents believe in Headstrong. So we couldn't find a place that would like let us do the Nick's House in the city, right?
Oh, okay.
Because of the transient, right?
Yeah.
My mom and dad were my parents had a very difficult time with my brother Nick passing. It took them like 5-6 years to recover financially, and it still weighs on them. Like, you know, with him it never goes away.
I don't think people like when I talk with people who buried a kid, like I don't want to say the wrong word here, but I feel completely unqualified to do it because A, I've never been a dad, so I can't understand that, and B, like that's just something no one should ever have to do.
Yep,
and I think everyone has their own timeline and space to deal with it, and fuck if I'm going to tell them how to do it because I don't even know how you go on. Yeah,
it's being a parent of young kids. I could never. It's my biggest fear. I could never imagine walking in my parents' shoes every day. And I give my folks, especially my mom, like a lot of credit for the last 15 years of being involved with Headstrong. Like sharing your son's story every day about him passing and like just facing that fear, like walking into that waking up and walking into that every day, it speaks volumes to who she is as a person. But so my parents were just like out on a drive, like just because they used to just like go on their motorcycle or just go out in a car just to get out of the house, because my brother Nick passed away in our house, right? So when my parents lived in Pennsylvania, so like every single day they would come home from work or they would leave, and they would look at that couch where like he passed away in, and just couldn't. I felt like they were drowning in the house. But on a positive side, they were driving around the area, like our community. And my mom was like, like I used to work in a building over here when I just got out of high school. And so they drove down the street, and the property was like dilapidated but for sale, right? My mom and dad looked at each other like, I wonder if we can do the Knicks house there.
And where is it? It's in Delco. Where?
So
next to Susquehanna College?
That was Swarthmore College. That's the new one. But I'm talking about the original one, which is my office now. So my parents, without like my brothers and I knowing, decide that they're going to refinance their home that they owned, right? They refinanced their house and they bought this place.
Wow.
Right? So they call a meeting with my brothers and I over dinner at their house, and they say, listen, we want to share with you, what we're doing, whether you like it or not, kind of a thing. My one brother was like, you guys are crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you guys are just coming out of like, a financial hardship and you're refinancing your house. What if this doesn't work? They're like, it's going to work. My brother Pat left. He was like fuming, like couldn't believe that they did this. My brother Dan's like, whatever, like if that's what you want to do and that's going to make you happy, like do it. And I was like, let's go. So they bought this building. The foundation slowly paid them back, you know what I mean? The loan that they took out.
I hope so.
And now that place actually operates as our office. But what we did was we operated the first level. It was a commercial on the first level, residential on the second level. So what we did was...
Wait, what?
So it was a 2-level building.
Okay.
So one level was commercial, one level was residential.
So one you kept as offices,
one
you're
kept
saying?
as offices. The other one we did as a test pilot to Nick's house to see if it was really worth exploring. So we operated like just one family at a time. We had families come. Our first patient was from Boulder, Colorado. She had stage 4 ovarian cancer. She didn't make it, but they were just great people and very thankful and appreciative of the opportunity, because it's only like it's a 10-minute train ride, 15-minute drive in to the hospital.
Yeah.
So we kept for about like 3 or 4 years. We kept doing the Nick's house thing there, and then over that time we started getting like incredible CEOs of companies on our board, and the friends and family started cycling out, and the board started to like develop into like people that were movers and shakers and had capacity, and it still is, right? So we had this strategic session at one of our board members' meetings, offices. Stream Companies is the company. It's a big, major digital firm. And we had this strategy session. Everyone's like, the Nick's house is like where you guys need to go. You need to expand on the Nick's house. Like everybody just we had this is crazy. Everybody got posted. And we wrote down all the services that we do, and like everyone had to go up and like prioritize what they thought was the most impactful, or where we could really, what the vision of the organization was, and everybody kept Nick's house. So we had this. We from the recap from that meeting was we're going to expand Nick's house. What did that look like? We didn't know. So we meet with our chair at that time. He still is our chair now. It's this guy who's owns a major company that is involved with the pharmaceutical company. So
what company?
It's called ValSource. So ValSource basically is a company that kind of governs and from a compliancy standpoint, pharmaceutical factories around the world. Mm. And David has just been an incredible mentor and advisor to my mom and I, and he's been very generous to the organization. His son is a survivor of brain cancer, and I think his son's name was, what's crazy is, son's name's Nick. His son's favorite number is 27, which was my brother Nick's number. And he's a survivor. And
Wow.
so
And did you know any of that before?
No.
I didn't think so.
So one of our employees' brother was like one of his main guys, like one of the presidents of his company, and brought him to our gala. And I'm kind of moving all over the place here, but
No, this is good.
so it was interesting around this time, which is crazy, is we have this gala every year. We actually have it coming up for the 11th year. But David, not knowing us, came to that event because of one of our employees' brother worked for him, and he came. So next, I'll never forget it. It was my mom and I in the office. It was just the three of us at the time, me, Pat, and my mom. And we got this knock on the door at our office. And this guy's there at the front door. And he's in like a t-shirt, shorts, and like flip-flops. So I was like thinking like, is he somebody that lives on the street or something? Like knocking on to see what's up? Like what's going on here? And he's like, hi, my name's David, so-and-so. Can I come in? I was at your gala. So this guy sits down, and he's just crying, and I'm looking at my mom. My mom starts crying, and he's like, "I can't stop thinking of you guys. Like I can't stop crying." So he starts to tell us his story. He's like, "I'm all in. I want to be your chair. I want to fund you. I want to take this thing to the next level." So like around that time that we had that, like literally weeks later, we had the strategy session to expand Nick's house. And David's right there behind us, pushing us, right?
Wow.
So
and this is what, like 2011, 2012?
12, I think. So me, my mom, and David are going around to all these buildings, looking at places again. And can't really find anything. I'm driving through Swarthmore because where we live, there's not much over here. And I'm with my wife. She was my wife at the time. We're taking back roads because the blue route was all backed up with traffic. And we're driving through Swarthmore. And my wife was like, "You ever see these places over here? They're monster homes." And she's like, people aren't really having families that big anymore because it's so expensive. These homes are like 7 bedrooms,
huge.
6 bedrooms, and they're like, there was a bunch of these places for sale. So I call my mom. I'm like, "Mom, we should call up our realtor and like maybe go visit some of these homes over in Swarthmore. It's like a really nice community-based, town, things like that." So my mom and I went to like with David, our chair, went to like 3 of them, and we walked into one, and we looked at each other like, "This is it. We're gonna buy this place." Like we just immediately knew as soon as we walked in the kitchen. So we dropped a $1.5 million capital campaign, fully renovated, and we've been up and running for 3 years. And the house is just turnkey. I mean, it's just amazing to see. Families from all over, all demographics, all geographic territories. It's pretty cool. I mean, we save on average like easy a 6-week stay. We save a family of like easily just with the stay $10,000 out of pocket expenses that they would have at a hotel. So we're giving people the chance to fight. We're giving them access to Penn, to CHOP, to the hospitals here. So it's been a privilege and an honor. It's been great, and the house has been a blessing, and we're going to replicate this in other areas where there's major hospitals. So, which is cool.
I see stories all the time in different things for different reasons. Could be a disease research, could be, raising money for something in someone's memory and things like that. And I'll see, the next of kin or the parents or the brother or sister, and they're running it, and you'll see that they've been doing it for a decade or 2 decades, in your case, like 15 years.
Yeah.
And it always strikes me that, like, number one, obviously I can't imagine, but you're also in this spot where, and you kind of touched on it a minute ago, you're in this spot where that memory is constantly around you because you're raising money for the personal thing that directly affected you and someone you love who's no longer there.
Yep.
And so I think 2 things can kind of happen there, and one of them probably is pointed out by the chairman of your board a little bit. It seems like even though his son survived, he relived a lot of that and relived the idea that, like, oh my God, it could have gone this way too. Yep. I understand like how crazy and shattering that must be for them. But then you're also on the ground with these families. They're living in a house that you're at all the time. They stay there for 6, 8, 10 weeks, whatever it is, during the most trying period of their lives. And I know that it's 8 at a time, and they're coming in and out. But the personal relationship, I would imagine, maybe not with all of them, but with many of them that you have over the years, people that end up surviving or people that end up dying. It's almost like that is an extended family that comes out of the memory of your brother. And the beautiful nature of that is incredible. But I also can't help but think, like, you and your parents and everything, you got to relive it a lot. You know, you're constant. I don't know if you just get a little bit used to it, which I don't even think that's nice to say. I don't think you get used to something, but like it's on your mind at all times. You know, there's no escaping it.
I mean, for me, when I was so close to Nick that when he passed, I had to I couldn't run from it, right? Because if I did, I probably wouldn't be here, right? So like for me, I literally ran into it, and I'm not gonna say it was easy. Thanks to I got professional help, and Hofstra, my university was very supportive, and family and friends and things like that. I definitely think the organization has helped me from a grieving standpoint. For me, although Nick's always at the forefront of everything we do, I'm very business minded and oriented when it comes to HEADStrong. So I run HEADStrong like a for-profit. And I run it like a business, and I don't really let emotions in. Now, I can't speak for my brother and my mom because they live off of the emotion. So how they navigate things is completely different than how I navigate things. At HEADStrong, I don't really talk about Nick a lot. You know what I mean? Because I'm the behind the scenes guy, strategy. And I'm behind the scenes of everything. Cheryl and my brother Pat, they'll talk your ear off, and they're out in front. They're the voice. I'm never been, believe it or not. Last thing my brother Nick said to me, because I used to be a super quiet kid, and he said you gotta find your voice. You don't find your voice, you're not gonna amount to anything. So I've been talking more. You know what I mean? Like even doing this podcast was a big thing for me because I'm not really somebody. I talk my ear off about my kids and things like that, but I don't usually talk about myself or my personal stuff. But if I'm with a patient one-on-one, I will. But to my team, I don't really talk about Nick. And although he's a part of the discussion, I think I do a very good job at balancing that.
Clearly,
yeah, I don't really have, and I think a lot of it has to do with the testament of how I was able to. And I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I said earlier, I ran, when he passed, I ran into it. I didn't run from it. My one brother ran away from it, turned to alcohol, and had a very interesting few years there where we weren't sure how that was going to go. Thankfully, he met an incredible woman who has changed his life and the trajectory of that. And he's got a solid career, and she's awesome, and they have beautiful children together. But my brother Dan was putting away a bottle of Jack Daniels a day, driving, just living a lifestyle that was very dangerous. But that was unfortunately, that was just the way that he was able to cope. Because the thing is when someone like that, my family was very close. Now it's a different dynamic now. We're still mutually connected, but it's different. But we were very hands-on and very, very tight before Nick passed. But when someone passes that's so close to you, it's not they hand you, it's anything in life that you face, it's hard. It's not they hand you a book and they're okay, today's Monday, this is what you do, and today's Wednesday, and this is what you do. It's you have to figure it out, And I've been very fortunate in a sense where I've been able to stay composed and just think through things and have the confidence in myself to ask for help and get the help. I'm very very plan oriented. I always preach plan your work and work your plan. You know what I mean? And stick by that stuff and set your goals and things like that. And like I said, I definitely think the success of the organization has helped, keep Nick's legacy alive. And when I go and meet with a patient, the feeling that I get, I can't really explain. When I go to Nick's house and I have patients just looking at me and talking to me about Nick, that's it's not a job. You know what I mean? This is just an incredible thing that we're able to do to impact lives, and Nick is always at the forefront of it. You know what I mean? He's the reason why we're there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And people that are connected to it know They do their research. They know. People come up to me and talk to me like my brother Nick's a god, just really, really cool. And it's just been a great way to kind of live. It's changed my thought process a lot. I wish more kids and parents were actively working with their kids to understand what life's really about. You know what I mean? I feel like social media has damaged, I think, people's outlook, and these younger generations definitely interesting. But I mean, teaching your kids about giving back and about more. There's more to life than money and materialistic things. You know what I mean? It's about helping others, and that's my whole thing. Is got to give to receive, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, like, I don't think you'd pull anyone off the street and say, do you agree we should give money to help out cancer patients? And you're going to get people to say no. Like there's generally, even people who are kind of assholes, like, there's a common sense level with most things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But there's also a disconnect that happens, and it's not just with cancer. It's with a lot of different things that people go through, where when it's not at your doorstep, you don't consider what it is,
Yep.
and one of the beauties of social media, and I agree with you, there are a lot of things that are unfortunate about what it does to us as a society, but one of the beauties of it is you do get a chance to see some of this stuff from other people. You get to see struggles, whether it be a cancer patient who's sharing their story.
You're right.
Or someone who's had a lifelong disease that's just debilitating or whatever, and I appreciate that stuff. I almost like it's hard to watch it sometimes, but I make myself, because it is a good reminder that, like, when you are having issues with things, and everyone does, and you should recognize that when it happens. Like, you can't just constantly say, like, you have no issues, you have no reason. You could sit back and say, like, all right, I need to take a moment for myself, but it's usually not the end of the world. And you see what people are dealing with, life and death, or the prospect of being young and having to look down the barrel of you have X months to live or whatever. And then, for me, it really resets things. And so you hitting on the give more, and I like that you put that on the cup as well. We gotta get that in shot.
Probably can't read it. But.
Yeah, but you can barely read mine. But give more, and then you'll receive more. It's like a lot of people think that they're giving oriented, but in reality they're very passive about it,
They're not.
And like I do try to look at myself with that as well. Like I'm one of those guys that, like, if I haven't given to, like, this charity or whatever that I usually do, I'll panic and write the check, even if I don't think about it at the time, and I should be putting in the time to think about, well, what are they doing right now?
Yeah.
There's like a part of me that's like, no, like, do it. And
Yep.
I don't have much money at all, but like in the future, that's something that I'd want to be passionate about. And so I think for you, like, running it, of course you're tied to it, but to your point, you're running it like a business too, and you're showing people, like, hey, I'm making this my life as well. Like, it's not just the emotional thing all the time. This is like, we can really make an impact here, so we're going to make it in a smart way. We're going to raise the most money and do the most help for the most people we can.
Yeah, I think too, people need to realize that you don't even have to contribute financially. You know what I mean? Like, I constantly preach to my kids, and they're young, but like, just about, like, if you could have that as part of your, your daily routine, or who you are as a person, of just being nice. Like, we need more people just to be nice to each other, just in general. Like, I always say hi to everybody. I treat everyone the same exact way. I hold the door for people. Like, just being, especially in the times that we live in right now, it's like, my parents always say, like, when they grew up, their front door was wide open. It was never locked. Like, now it's like everyone's closed doors are locked. It's insane. It's a different world. But volunteering your time, when I first graduated college, I went and worked in an orphanage down in El Salvador. And it was just, I thought what I had gone through with Nick's situation was, like, life-changing. That was just insane. Like, I had kids running up to me every day, Poppy, Poppy, like, thinking I was their father. Wow. And that was something that that has changed my life forever, is
How'd you get connected with that?
One of my former teammates' mom was from there, and actually his grandmom was one of the people that ran the orphanage. So we went down for 2 weeks, and an incredible experience that I had, and I was able to impact these kids' lives. I was playing with them all day, ball, basketball, hopscotch. Like, they don't have much, I brought toys with me to give to them. And that was life-changing. So it's like, and those are things that, like, I feel like, go back to your point, you can go study all you want. You could be as smart as you want, but experiences are what I feel like mold us.
Yes.
And my experience, like, I just happened to be 18 years old and lost my brother, and that experience wasn't necessarily in the plan, but it happened, and I've grown from it. You know what I mean? I look at everything from an educational, from a growth standpoint. You know what I mean? Everything that I do, I try to learn, I try to grow. Like, even doing this podcast, I've never done a podcast before, but I'll learn from this experience.
I don't think this is going to be your last. I'm pretty good at this.
But, like, what's interesting is, like, I constantly try to preach to people, like, the last 15 years, and we talked about this a little bit, it's like running a nonprofit from the ground up, starting a nonprofit from the ground up and being successful and sustaining for as long as we've did. I've learned more than I will ever learn if I went to, like,
Sure.
The Wharton School of Business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not to knock that, and I would love maybe one day to even go there for school if I could ever get in.
Yeah,
but,
you
like,
can say both at the same time.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
But
Yeah.
like, you're forced to operate on a thin margin. You know what I mean? You're wearing multiple hats. Like, I was the volunteer director, the graphic designer, the marketing director, the vice president, the and I still am responsible. My job has gotten easier in some ways where we've sustained for so long, and the work that we do, we make our staff and our volunteers a part of the services. So, like, for example, 2 weeks ago, we have a mom and a husband staying with us at Nick's house. They're from the New York City, and they've been there for, I would say, at least 6 months, and their treatment keeps getting pushed back and pushed back.
Wait, they've been there for 6 months?
Yeah, they stay. Nick's house is long-term lodging. Right?
I thought it was up to like 10 weeks. You have people
6 to 10 weeks is like the minimum stay, but we have people stay for 6 months on end, right? So, like, more things have got, and they have a 1-year-old daughter, right? So, and it's small things, but, like, the mom, I could never imagine being in the mom's shoes. And so the other day, like,
who has the cancer?
The daughter.
The
She's
daughter
8 years
has the
old.
cancer.
Yeah. Renal, like, in the kidney area. Dad is the man. But, like, the biggest thing that we try to do is we try to involve people in our work so that way they can see what we do. Because as soon as you see what we do, it's like, I gotta get involved. So, like, for a small little example, bought like a $250 gift card to like a really nice salon, like, for this mom to go get a massage. But I gave it to my marketing director and I gave her a card. I said, fill this out, give this card. So I empower my teammate, which is my employee, to go facilitate the mission, right? When we host events, every event that we do, we started it like 7 years ago. We give out financial assistance. We have a family come to the actual event, and we give a check presentation at the event. So everybody that's involved with that event sees exactly what the work that, okay, the last 2 months I just did all this fundraising, or I just trained to run this marathon, and the money goes to that person. Connect the dots, and it's inclusion. It's one of our corporate initiatives, is like, the more people we include in the mission and the work that we do, the more successful we'll be.
Now, this is actually a really important point that I'm curious to know how much you know. I mean, I'm sure you do based on the homework you do, but, like, outside of your organization, within nonprofits, because I don't think this gets talked about enough. Even with some of the biggest ones, but then let's use smaller examples that are still sizable, like personal foundations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the untalked about problems is that the money is not necessarily going to what you think it's going to.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not just always the people who run the foundation at fault, though they should be overlooking it better. But let's say, like, a really wealthy person is running a foundation for X cause that they're passionate about, and then they still run a company themselves, so they employ a team of people to do whatever, and they don't always know exactly where the money's siphoned to. But what we've seen is that a lot of times people will donate money and it doesn't fund shit. And you will have organizations that may raise $1 million, $5 million and claim to help X, Y, and Z, but really they paid for a golf outing once and that's it.
Yeah.
So running your organization, I like that you brought up that you literally try to bring in also the people who are being helped by it
Yep.
to become a part of it, to see exactly where everything goes and how it funds.
Yep.
But like, how many times have you run into nonprofits, even sizable ones that you went to partner with or, you know, talk with, whatever it is, where it's like, wait a second, I don't, they may be raising X amount of money, but I don't know where, this might not be going anywhere.
So I used to like get so involved with that stuff, like going maybe like our first years, I was heavily involved with like researching other organizations and what they were doing, how much they were raising. And I even saw when I worked at Penn, like we would have major gifts come in, even to the department that I was in. And like, it takes people, you know what I mean? You have to have bodies in order to accomplish a mission,
Yes.
right? But there's also right and wrong ways of going about that. And definitely, like if you can even look it up, like I don't know recently, but I know that some of the worst nonprofit organizations were actually like 2 or 3 of the worst nonprofits in this category that you're talking about were based out of Philadelphia. I can't remember exactly which ones they were, but like literally I think it was like the first and the second or third worst nonprofits in this topic were in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I got it pulled up right behind you there from the Inquirer up on the screen. 5 regional charities are finding themselves on the defensive after being named in a report as among the worst of the nation. The report released last month by the Center for Investigative Reporting, the Tampa Bay Times, and CNN found that the charities spend most of their money on telemarketing and administrative costs instead of the children, cancer survivors, veterans, and police they receive tax-exempt status to help. Now, and this is, I'm glad they have that detail right there because you even just said it yourself. Yeah, you have to pay to run the charity.
You have to. And I think there's a misconception out there that like, it depends on how the organization is set up and how it operates and its bylaws and how it's regulated, right? But, you know, you have to pay. You're only as strong as your team. You know, I think the one thing, like there was a while back, like the Wounded Warrior organization had some trouble. Like, you know, so their CEO at the time was like very entrepreneurial, and he would take the employees like on these trips, like these retreats to try to like build team building, and it might have been a little too much of a stretch where, and it actually cost him, I think, his job, and the board came in and restructured the whole executive team because people, you have to do it. You have to be very clear with exactly what you're doing with people's money, and for us, it's like, well, come with us and we'll do it together. Like that's kind of how we transparency out the gates. You know what I mean? Like whatever we're doing, like in the hospital, our volunteers, our board members, our donors go with us and serve the patients the meal. Like everything we do is direct service to the patient. You can't hide it. And the more you could show it, the more support and supporters you're going to get just at large. So for our standpoint, like, and I think that's the unique thing is, this sounds weird, but I think we have an incredible advantage that our founder, unfortunately, is no longer with us. Because, and the reason why I say that in the way that I do is because people buy into Nick and who he is who he was as a person. So it's not about me. It's not about my mom. It's not about my brother, whoever else. It's not about them. It's all about Nick and what Nick stood for. He's always at the forefront of everything. So it's not like, for example, like Lance was alive and made some very poor decisions, and that has negatively impacted that company significantly. Whereas like we literally follow what Nick put out in front of us and how to execute, you know? So it's very interesting in a lot of ways, but I think the more transparent you are in general with things and the more communication you have and more you could show your impact. Like Charity Water does an incredible job. Like I used to be so obsessed.
Wait, what was that?
Charity Water? They're based out of New York. They provide clean water to like third world countries. They build wells. And their digital marketing is just off the charts. But like, you know, St. Jude's spends millions of dollars, I think, on advertising, but they offer a free hospital. How do you evaluate that? You know what I mean? So you have to spend money to make money just in general. And the way it should be run, people that are in for-profit should operate as a nonprofit, and people that are in nonprofit should operate as a for-profit. But the thing is like, and I take that from Nick Bayer, who's CEO of Saxby's, who just did a team building exercise with us. And I've always preached that to people, like, I run HEADStrong like a for-profit company. Like, yeah, we have guidelines. Like, and that's the thing too, is like as you sustain, you start to build people's trust, right? And you know, we have all these there's different organizations that audit, that also give you seal of approvals, like GuideStar and all these different groups that give you these shields that you can put on your website, that you can communicate to your donors to know that it's safe to donate to you. Like once we reach...
Well, quick question.
Shoot.
How, and I'm not taking a shot at them, whoever they are, because I know it's difficult, but how reliable is that? And the only reason I ask that is because not necessarily in charities, I can't think of any examples I personally know.
Yeah.
But you look at other things like in nutrition and food,
Yep.
and these companies that so-called put a label that say, oh, this means they did that, and like it ends up that there's no way they could prove it. So like how reliable is that?
It's very reliable.
Okay.
Nonprofit is governed like very, very tight.
I hope so.
Especially when you reach like the $1 million mark in annual revenue, which has been, I would say, maybe over 10 years for us. But once we're audited, you know what I mean? Every single penny is audited, and it's outsiders that come in to audit. So there's financials that we have to report on. We have committees on our board that are responsible for, like, and that's the one thing that's as long as you have systems in place, like,
Yes.
like for example, we have systems in place at HEADStrong where a lot of the decisions are made from the board members. Like Cheryl and I, my mom, like we have systems in place of X amount of dollars have to be approved that are spent, have to be approved by board. My salary is approved by the board. Her salary is approved. So that regulation and those systems in play allow for an even playing field where you can't have everyone, and that's the thing about running a tight organization like ours. You can't hide. You will be exposed. Even my employees that work for the organization, I should say our employees that work for the organizations, you either sink or swim. You know what I mean? And you know that within the first month. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you can't hide. Like we run a tight ship, and but at the same time, we have incredible impact, you know?
You have to, that guy you mentioned, though, a few minutes ago, like the example, this just sticks out because you have to be smart about it.
Yeah.
Like the one who you were saying was paying for trips for team building exercises.
Wounded Warrior Project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he wasn't a bad guy. Maybe he is like a good guy.
I don't think he is either.
Good intentions. But like the common sense has to pop in your head going, all right, is this like a corporation building a trying to reward employees to go on vacation, or is this a nonprofit where in order to do that we have to use other people's money that they don't think is going towards a beach in fucking Florida? Mm-hmm. And like I'm not saying like that makes them bad. I'm saying like you have to have more common sense, and if you really want to do that because it's important to you to build your team because they don't have enough motivation every day at the job for the fact that they're doing something really cool here, then pay for it your goddamn self.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You gotta be smart about that.
You're right. Absolutely.
And on the side of drugs, though, because that's the other thing, because we started to touch this earlier and then didn't go to it, where you were talking about like the lack of a cure for cancer and the fact that there's a lot of maintenance and things going on. Even a layer below that, because that's a wild concept to me. I've heard people say that kind of thing before, and I don't know enough to be able to get there, but I do know, as I said, like we've been doing chemo forever, and like that doesn't change a hell of a lot, so that's certainly confusing. But when you're talking about innovation on anything, like whether it be like a nonprofit where you have to motivate, like you need talented people to work at a place, right? And yet you're probably not going to compete on crazy salaries with corporations and stuff because the fact of the matter is the priority is towards a nonprofit.
Mission
so
focused.
That already makes it hard because it is a money world. But then look at like pharma companies and what they have to do because we talk about how fucked up insurance is and all that, and that's certainly true. That's a whole different conversation. But with pharma companies, you'll see these stories about how much drugs cost and whatever, and it sucks, and it's a problem. But a friend of mine was the head of global finance for oncology for one of the major drug companies, and I remember talking to him a few years ago because he was spearheading the CAR T therapy research that they were doing, and at the time, I don't know if they still are, but at the time they were first in the world at it. And I said, how wild is it that you're because he's explaining the whole thing to me. I'm like, how wild is it that you're looking at something that has had like it had like an 88% cure rate on people with I believe late stage 3 or like the earliest forms of stage 4 cancer. I'm like, how wild is it to like you have something that could be the beginnings of a cure here? And he's like, dude, you have no idea. Like, I go in every day, and he's not the doctor. He's the guy. He's running the finance and running it. But he's like, the pressure on that is that we need to get this done. And the issue is that I am constantly in a battle to find talent because through no fault of their own, doctors, he's like, oncology doctors, I mean, you talked about your guy in Philly who was meeting with 40 patients a day. They give their lives to this thing. Most of them are phenomenal doctors who live and die with their patients, not literally, but you know what I mean, right? And yet, you know, they're gonna get paid for that, and they're gonna get paid a lot of money, and that is the system. Like, you need doctors to have an incentive to become doctors and become that great of a doctor. And he's like, I'm constantly battling against keeping my balance sheet over here and also paying doctors enough, the best, to incentivize to pull them away from situations like that. Yeah, so like he's like, you got everyone. This is the point. You got everyone coming in yelling about drug prices and all that. And he's like, I hear you. I agree with you. But he's like, how the fuck are we supposed to build it without that? It's like you're stuck.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. I know one of the doctors that I worked with at Penn actually took a sabbatical for like, I think a year or two. And he was the one that basically launched T-Cell at Penn with Carl June, who was like the guy on the lab side. So, I get it, you know, and things do cost money. I think just the rate of it, it's astronomical. You know what I mean? To be able to expect, and also the regulation around it with insurance companies, with the government, and things like that. It's definitely very interesting. You know, you want to continue to advance medicine. And then that's the thing too, like Nick was always about, we actually have a research portfolio at Penn. When we first started, we were dumping some money into research as an organization because we were still trying to figure out our identity. Like, where were we going to fit? Came to the point where like we were grinding like nonstop. And I said to my mom, like, why are we funding all these other initiatives when we could be doing this ourselves and having even a greater impact in Nick's legacy?
Wait, what do you mean? You were funding studies, though,
like
right?
We had a research portfolio at Penn, which it's still there. Millions of dollars are in it, and it's used for studies. Okay. And we were also giving like a lot of money to Leukemia Lymphoma Society and groups like that that were already established and had programming. What did they say that broke the camel's back? What's the saying? That
the straw that broke the camel's
back was every year we would do like the Night to Light walk. And I'm not knocking Leukemia Lymphoma Society because they do great things, but they had a director that we were contributing a significant amount of money each year. And we would get like invited to like these award ceremonies, but not even like be acknowledged. And not about that by any stretch of the imagination, but like we were the leading contributor. And I'll never forget, we had gone to this award ceremony and we weren't even acknowledged, even though we gave the most amount of money. Following week, we're back in the office and we get a phone call from the director asking if we would give more than we already gave. And to me, that's like double dipping. That's like, come on. So that was like the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. Was like, I literally had a board meeting and I got the board to vote in favor of not contributing to any other organizations and start investing in our own services. And at the same time, I put a presentation together because my mom, I talked about her being conservative, was against changing our logo because it was Nick's original logo, but it had a lacrosse stick running. That's hard. But it had a lacrosse stick running through it. Yeah. So I would go into corporate settings and I would share our story, like, oh yeah, you're a lacrosse club. I'm like, no, we're actually a foundation, you know? So rebranded, I put together stuff, rebranded. I had to do a whole presentation. I did logos literally from McDonald's to see like the logos, Pepsi, Coke. And I literally gave a presentation. I had a board vote, outruled my mom to change the logo, to change our mission. Tough, though. And also to start investing into our own services instead of, because what happens is like LLS looked great. And here we are like grinding every single day to make like to raise money. And then we're just giving it off to this group. And then they're advancing their mission. Wasn't helping us. So
you don't know where it's going. You don't know where it's going either.
That was a huge change in HEADStrong's trajectory. But no, it's been great, and we've been very blessed with a lot of supporters and just, being able to help people in their, desperate stages.
But it's pretty clear to me, like just looking at the arc here, you found your expertise through this. Like, and that last story is a great example. Like you, in building this organization, I don't want to say it wasn't by accident. I mean, you were working every day, but without like knowing what it was going to be day one, you're just selling t-shirts, as we said. Mm-hmm. You had to keep marketing it. You had to keep figuring out like, okay, here's how we take the next step, whatever. And so then that really got you on the bug of, hey, I feel like I know how to message some things.
Yeah, and the one of the biggest challenges that I fought for was my mom, my brother were very protective over the folks we were working with.
What do you mean?
Right. So I kept drilling this conversation into them, saying, like, if we don't show people the patients we're working with, how do you expect them to support your mission? So this is like, meaning like taking pictures, shooting videos, telling these people stories. So
you weren't doing any of that?
No, we were just showing all the different events that we were doing. Like, hey, we have this 5K. Hey, we have this lacrosse tournament. Hey, we have this cool Mustache Madness campaign. That was all so it was all fundraising, but there was no mission, no impact. So I was telling them, like, our marketing is lopsided. We actually need the opposite. Calls needs to be like 70% of our marketing, and 30% needs to show people how we do it and ask them to partake in that. So, like, for a while there, I started shooting videos of patients and telling their stories. And my concept was, we need to tell Nick's stories. Nick's story needs to be told through today's patients.
Wow. And
that was my vision, and we've been doing it ever since. And the more that we tell these stories, the more people are going to connect to it, the more people are going to get involved.
Now, when you say you just kind of film their stories, are you talking about like you made YouTube videos?
Yeah, like we have a production group that we have several that we work with. One, I'll give them a plug, New Pace. They're phenomenal. They do a great job. And that we basically tell these people's stories. And then we end it with HEADStrong, how HEADStrong intervened to help. Everyone's
different. Like 5-minute content, 30-minute content?
The videos are typically 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
So we shoot, like, we actually had a shoot today over at Nick's house, or yesterday we had a video shot. But what's cool is I try to tell folks, like, your story can impact lives just like Nick's. And if you're able to share, and it's not easy and everyone's different, but if you share your story, the next person in line, when they watch that could be the difference in getting them through the day.
Yeah.
And you have the ability to be an inspiration to those that are following in your footsteps. Nick's whole thing was, I want to help people that are following in my footsteps. And I want to be I want them to draw strength from me. I want to be a source of strength and hope for them. And they're going to do that through HEADStrong, So it's definitely been a roller coaster ride of a lot of different hurdles, but like I said, I mean, there's a quote that's like that I live by, and I'm trying to think of it. It was like, you can't go a day without. It was almost like you can't. What's the coach Wood?
John Wood.
Yeah, he has a quote. Look it up real quick. It's awesome. I love it. It's like, you got it, almost like doing something where they can never pay you back. Like, you can never live a full day without. You'll probably pull it up.
You can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you.
Yeah, that's like my favorite quote.
Wait, let's repeat that. You can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you.
That's like me in a nutshell. I love that quote, and although I can't always recite it because my memory sucks, because I got so many things going on. I live by that concept of just constantly, because I'm a big believer that, like, from a professional standpoint, my best days are ahead of me. I mean, it landed me the opportunity I have now, with ProVantage. Like, I was able to partner with, such an established, guy, and it's leading to opportunities where I'm having calls and taking meetings with people that I never could imagine would take place. And I know there's a lot ahead of me. Like, my from a professional standpoint, I have a ton of growth and opportunity ahead of me, and I think it's a true testament to the last 15 years of me committing to this organization and the things that I've learned while operating that.
How do you balance it though? Because like, I mean, this is obviously, you seem like a machine. You got both of these things full time.
My wife will tell you. So I'm actually reading a book right now from Scott O'Neill.
You have time to read books too. Good for you, man.
Yeah. So I'm reading a book right now. It's basically like be present, be where your feet are.
Is that the former president of the Sixers?
Yeah.
And Devils?
Yeah. And I try to draw inspiration from people like him because that's where I want to be one day. I want to have success like that. A different success, but a success like that. And I think, so I'm trying to be, my goal from this book is just trying to be, he talks about like being where your feet are. So if you're at work, you're all in at your work. If you're at the gym, you're all in at the gym. If you're at home with your family and wife and kids, put the phone down, put the computer down, like be there. And what was interesting was I picked this book up and I keep it in my bag and I literally squeeze in whatever I can find time to read throughout the day, whatever. If I'm waiting for a meeting or if I'm, early mornings, I'll get up, grab a cup of coffee and I'll try to crush a chapter. Or even just like 5, 6 pages, 10 pages, whatever. Just get it in.
That's
right?
The best in the morning like that.
Yeah. So I actually messaged him the other day because I was like, and he's like, you should post that. But small stuff, like we don't realize how much our cell phones get in the way and distract us. And especially this younger generation, like it's part of their, like, I don't know if you've ever seen a younger, like teenager, if you take their phone from them, they almost have like anxiety. It's insane. So
it's a limb. It's their fifth limb.
It's insane. So my daughters are in dance up the street here, and I left. It's just crazy, but like it sounds crazy, but it's really not. It's so silly. I literally left my phone in the truck, walked in, and just watched my kids, and I was so engaged in watching them. They're 5 and 4. And usually I'm there and I'm watching, but then I'm answering emails. I'm watching, I'm answering the phone. I have clients call me. I have things, responsibility, with work. Left the phone in the car. Afterwards, I looked at my wife. I said, like, that was the most I've, like, appreciated, like, just being present and watching my kids. Like, I was just, the fulfillment that I got, just not having the distraction. But it's something simple and small that we, like, we're always on our phones, dude. It's insane how distracted we are on these devices, whether it's a laptop, iPad, iPhone, iWatch. And I've been trying to do a better job, and it's not easy by any stretch of imagination, but just trying to be, like, even at the dinner table, like, phone's over there, going out to dinner, leaving the phone in the car, just trying to get, I don't watch the news, but I do read online about the current events and things like that. But also at the same time, just trying to do a better job at like managing my time on my devices versus being present with, because my daughter's already 5 years old, which is like, I can't even believe. You know what I mean?
They play with your phone a lot?
Time just moves. So I have old iPhones that I have an iPad for my daughter, for my younger daughter, middle-aged daughter, she's 4. She's in the middle of them. And then my 5-year-old has my old iPhone. So like we let them go on like the YouTube Kids, and they have FaceTime to be able to FaceTime, their cousins and like their grandma, grandpa, things like that. But it's regulated and monitored.
Sure.
But at the same time, my wife and I have a conversation about this because she's an educator. We don't want to neglect our kids from it either, because it's going to be like, could you imagine like my kids, like what's their, you know what I mean? By the time that they get to 18 years old and they're in college, like we want to make sure that they're moving, you know what I mean?
It's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance. That's why I like that, like you're regulating it and paying attention, but also working it in, because what I find is people go 0 or 100 here. They're all in just letting their kids do whatever the hell they want and don't question anything, or they try to be like the Amish people and tell them none of it, and then their kids fall behind with stuff.
Yep.
And my friends Anthony, Riley, and Baker, who have all now been on this podcast, they have a software company that owns the fastest compression algorithm for within the realm of holograms in the world. So they are the only people that can produce live stream 6 degrees of freedom holograms. It's going to change the world here assuming they don't fuck it up. But anyway, Riley is very, very obsessed with the screen time thing, which is interesting because he's a tech. They're all tech guys.
Yeah.
But they have, all three of them have such a good perspective. This is just something that Riley's really passionate about. So I want to point him out with this. Like, he's always asking, he's like, have people checked their screen time since the pandemic started? Like, what were they doing?
Yep.
You know, this is a guy that will be running a tech company during the day and then go fishing off, 6 miles offshore overnight and not think about it. You know what I mean? So he has that balance. But in a way, it's like that middle ground, like everything else in society, it's very, very hard to find. So I don't want to be the guy that's like detests it and pretends that tech isn't critical and something that's like, I mean, it's a huge part of my life, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, as a personal example, that's why I like hearing that you focus on this as well, your own way. But when I was building this podcast for 6 months, I had a drill and I could do this at the time. Like, now I do need the phone there because obviously all my marketing runs through there. So it has to be accessible. But I'm pretty good at not touching it because in those 6 months leading up to starting the podcast, I would take the phone and put it back there in the corner off and leave it there for 10, 12 hours at a time. And so I learned to just totally live without it. And then I started to realize, especially like in my career, which for 5 years, my biggest thing was I was out there with people, connecting with people. I was a big texter, but I was on the phone a lot, like actually talking on it.
Yep.
I'm like, God damn. It's weird not picking that up and making 50 calls a day to whoever the fuck, to do something. And you don't realize that I was like, all right, I look at all these kids and they kind of have it as a fifth limb, but so do we.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the interesting thing is like my kids see my wife and I on it. So it's like mommy and daddy are doing it. You know what I mean? So I think in moderation is key. And it's interesting, like my life is very busy. Right, with work and also at home. So trying to balance all that, making sure that I'm allocating time for my marriage, for my kids, you know what I mean? And also myself. I mean, that's been something that I've spent a lot of thought on. Like I've gotten big into the outdoors with fishing, slowly creeping into hunting.
Trent have something to do with that.
yeah. But actually fishing before I got, my friendship has developed, significantly with him, but, like I don't play sports anymore. You know what I mean? So I've done some fitness things, some endurance challenges just to challenge myself. But like the outdoors thing has definitely been like my time to just escape and just, headspace. You know what I mean?
Now, when you go hunting and fishing, you have the phone with you, but do you turn it off or what's the deal there?
So I have the phone on me for emergency reasons, but at the same time, like I don't touch it.
That's good.
You know what I mean? And my fishing typically is early morning. So I leave the house at like 4:30 in the dark and I'll fish until the wife calls me and says, yo, they're all up, get home. But, awesome. And that's just like something that I've picked up over like the last 2 years. But no, it's been life. Like there's, but the book, going back to that book, it's just been the last few weeks. I felt, I felt like the most balanced I've been. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm engaging. Like 'cause it goes back to like, okay, I take a meeting and I'm sitting there on my phone. What does that tell the other person? I'm not really interested. You know what I mean? So being fully committed to where you are at that time and then, managing your schedule to the point where it's balanced, but at the same time, when you're in those individual things, make sure you're focused and you're present, and that's been the theme of the book so far. I've really enjoyed it.
I noticed you said two things though, in our first two conversations before we got in here, because we just got connected. But when I talked to you on the phone and we were scheduling you coming in here, you were almost like, you were very planned about it too. We were going through which day you could come in and you were explaining how one of your kids was a little bit sick. I think she had a fever or something like that. And you're like, so I definitely don't want to do it tomorrow night because, I'm not going to, I can't be present for her. I need to be present for that. And then when you came here today and you were talking about golf and getting your wife clubs and everything, and you're like, I'm looking forward to the fact that like if I have something I enjoy, she can enjoy it with me too, so we don't grow apart. Like, you're very, very conscious of not just like this moment right now, but also like over time, how do I allocate that time? If I have, obviously you have all these very important responsibilities and aspirations on top of that, basically like running 2 companies here, a nonprofit and a for-profit.
Yep.
But like, there's also the most important balance of your personal life and the people you care about most, and not feeling like, to me, the way it comes across is not feeling like you're allocating a timestamp for them, but saying like, how do I make sure that when I'm with them, I'm actually with them, and I'm not dragging these other things into it, and I'm not over deltaing the other things in my life to ignore them. And that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I am very big on being present with I am very active in my life with my kids and wife. Like, that's priority 1, because I feel like if that's not strong, that will not allow me to achieve my ultimate success. You know, my wife she's very strong, like, just in general. Yeah. And that attracts the shit out of me, because not only is she beautiful, but she's an incredibly strong woman. She's the first girl that I met that like held me accountable. You know what I mean? And I was telling her dad this over last weekend when I was down at the shore house. I said, your wife, like, your wife is just so incredible. She's the first girl that like I didn't like walk on. Like, she punched me right in the face, and I was like, I immediately knew, like,
your daughter, you mean?
Her daughter,
right.
His daughter.
Yeah.
I bought a ring within like 2 months of meeting my wife.
No shit.
Yep.
When did you meet her?
I started dating May 29, 2011.
And you were engaged in 2 months?
I bought a ring, but I wasn't engaged. So we were probably engaged within 1 year. She was just graduating college.
Wow.
Yep. So we got married young, had kids young. We wanted to be young parents, but yeah, like, she's a real one. She's awesome. And but like, that's where my main priority, my main focus is her and my kids. And like, I don't miss doctor's appointments. Like, I don't miss anything. My kids, my wife are first, and then I work around that, you know? So like, from a management standpoint, like, I have my responsibility. I don't stop. It's like 7 days a week for me. When I get home, I immediately get down on the floor. I spend time with my kids. I spend time with my wife. I make dinner. We
make dinner?
Yeah.
Come on.
I swear to God, my wife, that's the one thing my wife can't do is cook. She's not the best of cook, but I'll make dinner. My wife takes the kids up, gets them ready for bed. I clean up. I meet her up there. We put the kids down. I spend time with her. And then when she falls asleep, I go to work. And I literally open my laptop. I'll work from 10:30 till 1, 2 in the morning every night. And then I'll go to sleep, you know, depending on when I get tired, and I'll sleep for a few hours and wake up. I'm up by 5:30, 6 a.m. the next day.
Now, I mean, as the foundation was growing, especially like 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and really starting to explode, and you're spending all your time there, what, like, excuse me for being like a little bit shocked, but where does it come from to be like, you know what, Trent, let's start a company on top of that? Like, are you pulling away from time? I take it you were spending on HEADStrong as well, because you have a full team now there too, or what's the, like, how does that come to light?
My ProVantage is done basically after my like, this is the thing with HEADStrong. I don't necessarily look at HEADStrong at like a 9 to 5.
Sure.
Right? Now, I do have responsibilities to the organization throughout the day, but I basically, usually like after 4 o'clock, I'll start working on ProVantage stuff. A lot of it is phone calls, packaging deals for the athletes, talking with companies that need help from a marketing standpoint. But the interesting thing is, HEADStrong is always a part of like that conversation naturally, sure, where it actually yields more opportunity for the organization, because they're like, you know, what's this organization you're involved with? Like, or what's your story? And I tell them about Nick. I tell them what I've built here with my mom and brother and things like that. And they're so infatuated by it, but like, they want to get involved in some way. They might make a donation. They might do something, support an event, things like that. So they complement one another. But like with Trent,
and your business partner, to be clear, is former Eagles great Trent Cole.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
3-time Pro Bowler, you know, he's, I'm a big believer. Like, he is so grounded and so humble that it's very attractive. When I first I was consulting for a digital marketing agency, and Brandon, is the CEO of that company, is like a great mentor of mine. He's a great friend, and I was learning the digital marketing world with him, and he was teaching me, and I was doing really well from a business development standpoint.
When is this?
This is 2009, and then kind of halfway through 2020, and then I kind of said to myself, like, I'm just gonna start doing this myself. You know what I mean? And it's an asset that I could build for that's gonna benefit me and my family. In the long run. And I'm more of the philosophy of a marathon. I'm more of like the marathon than the sprint. Everything I do is a marathon, and it's planned out strategically that way. So that way I know it's got longevity, I know it's got sustainability, and it's scalable. And so what was interesting was I brought Trent on as a client when I was working with this organization, and I wasn't necessarily doing his marketing. I just brought him on as an account and kind of would move on to the next account.
How'd you get connected with him?
Cold called him. So,
oh, shit.
Yeah, what I learned in nonprofit is you got to ask. I'm not shy to ask anything. I don't care who it is. I will ask you because you're already starting out with a no. So if you don't ask in nonprofit, you don't thrive. You don't survive. So you're constantly out hustling, asking for people for things, whether it's their time, money, expertise,
sure,
whatever the case may be. You got to find what the fit is. But with Trent was, I don't necessarily know what was going on with him and his account manager at the time, whatever. But he kept calling me like, Mike, like this isn't getting done, or can you just do it? Da-da-da. So I'm like, listen, I can't do that because of my contract, and that's not my job here. So he kept calling me like, I just want you, Mike. I just want you to do this work for me. So like, eventually I had a discussion with the CEO of the company. I said, listen, I'm going to kind of step away. I still actually use this firm though to help run HEADStrong. So they're a great organization.
Got it.
And they do a great job.
That's nice. It worked out that way.
Yeah. And mutually, Brandon's like, it's time for you to kind of take that next step. So I was down the beach last summer around this time, like July-ish of last summer. And I was down there on vacation, and I get a phone call from Trent. He's on his way to a fishing tournament, and he's like, I couldn't sleep last night. I was like, why? He's like, I just kept imagining like going into business with you. I was like, what do you mean? Like, he's like, I need to go into a business with you. I've never met somebody like you before. Like your grind, your hustle,
wow.
and your commitment, and I could trust you with anything. I could trust you with my kids. And I was like, he's like, we need to do something. So I was like, all right, let me think about it. I would love to go into business with you, knowing just a short window that I knew him, and how well positioned he was and how grounded he was to the level of success that he received. Like, it reminded me kind of like, he's obviously achieved a lot more than I've achieved, but like we share very similar, like we live a very similar way. You know what I mean? How we go about our days. Obviously he's found incredible success and has made a shit ton of money doing it.
Yeah.
But you would never even know that if you met him. Guy would give you the shirt off his back. He's awesome. So I was like,
I will say, just to interrupt for 1 second, it's very cool when I get to hear on the personal side that guys who appear this way publicly actually are.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a diehard Eagles fan. I love Trent Cole.
Yeah.
Right. But you'd see him talk and you're like, oh, this guy's got a lot of respect in the locker room. He's like a nice, even keel guy. And then nope, that's what he's actually like in life.
Like when he called me back, like I literally emailed him and I left him a voicemail when I was first trying to get Blitz Outdoors as a client. And when he called me back like 2 days later, I was like, what? Like Trent Cole like he's one of my favorite. Him, Brian Westbrook, and Brian Dawkins are like, that's my age. Like, like they're a little bit older than me, but like those were my guys. Like I'm a huge Eagles fan. And the fact that like one was calling me back and I was just blown away. I'm like, no way. And then we forged a great relationship beyond just like the business side. Like, I talk to him. We talk about like all kinds of stuff. Even just we talk more outside of business than we do business. It's just like just where our relationship has grown. But I said to him, we have a lot of deep conversations, and like my wife said last night, like, you guys are like two little girls. I was like, no, it's not like that, but it's like we have like really strong deep conversations about topics and about things. And
can you actually, and if you don't want to do this, no problem, but can you give like an example? Like, what do you mean when you say we have deep conversations? I can kind of guess, but
yeah. I mean, a lot of it is like what's going around in the world today, racism. I mean, I'm a big believer in like education. So if you're going to speak to something, like at least take the time to educate yourself. Because I feel like so many people, because we're online so much, they get rolled into like an agenda and a story that's already told without actually like for example, like Fox News or CNN or even somebody's specific stance on something, which everyone's entitled to like their opinion, but take a time out and actually go do some research on whatever that topic may be. Whereas I feel like people don't understand, they don't take the time to learn and actually know factual information. So they just fall in line, right? And then all that does is that digs a bigger hole, right? A bigger ditch, and also times makes them look like an ass, whereas like for us, it's like we try to have deep conversations and talk about issues, talk about problems, like life, like in general, and what's going on around the world, and talk through it like from a logic, and it's also cool because his kids are similar ages as my kids, so we're experiencing similar things. And when you become a parent, there's decisions you got to be made. There's things that you experience that, you have to figure out how you're going to teach it and how you're how you're going to go about your life with your kids and how you're going to mentor them. And it's not always easy, Nope. And there's just things that are hard. It's like my life right now with little kids is very busy. It's very hard. There's a lot of lifting involved. So like, and balancing all that can be a challenge at times too. So, that's kind of it. And also too, a lot of discussions we had were, Trent's a former, professional athlete for a while. And like when you're in that position, they're constantly being, there's people constantly looking at them as a price tag. There's constantly people trying to take advantage, and it happens more than we think it does, believe it or not.
And, all the time, man.
And that's one of the reasons why like I felt so compelled to launch a company with him, because I was like, the idea was like Trent's very successful, probably more successful off the field than he was on the field, right? But he's quiet and he's humble about it, so not a lot of people know, and he likes it that way, which is good. But like I immediately jumped in and started helping him in multiple ways, and he was like, Mike, I can't tell you like how many guys need you and what you're doing for me. There's guys out there that like that don't even know that they need you. So just refresh my memory. I think you said this like 10 minutes ago, but specifically, what kind of things were you doing for him? This is before ProVantage and all that. Marketing, so after I kind of disconnected from the firm that I was consulting with, I just came on and was just working with Trent on some of his business things, some business management services, some administrative, services, marketing, like managing, different marketing, and also sponsorship, selling sponsorship for him. And I've been really successful at it. And he kept saying like, I just, you don't realize like how many guys need you and people like you. So like in hearing that on a consistent level, I'm like big on trying to find themes, right? So he kept talking, and I listen. I listen to people all the time. Like I know I'm talking a lot on this podcast, but that's kind of unlike me.
That's how I'm setting it up for you. You're doing a great job.
That's really like against who I am, but I know it's a podcast, so we're here to talk. And it's my first, so I'll learn from it. But I try to be more of the listener side. Like when I join meetings with my team, I might kick off the meeting, but like, and then I shut up and I hand it off to people and I engage the group, because everyone needs to be heard and needs to be involved. But from his standpoint, I kept hearing a theme in our conversations, and I'm like, well, why don't we launch a company, a marketing company, a firm, like doing what I do for you, but why don't we just launch it? And it could be twofold. We could do digital marketing and marketing for businesses, but then we could also represent athletes, and we can help them build their brand while they're actively playing, or if they're retired, working with them to try to see what can we monetize, and also making sure like how we can help them. You know, we're in the business to help both businesses. I'm in the business to help people. You know, on the charity side, it's obviously mission focused. On this side, it's like helping businesses build their brands and market to their consumers or whatever their target is, and also help these athletes out, because these athletes need people like me in order to figure out what's next for them beyond playing their sport, right?
And there's two really interesting things to unpack here. So let's start with the first one. As it seems Trent pointed out to you, and I mean, he could not be more correct about this, when you look at the athlete and entertainment business, like the business of the individuals, it is one of the scummiest things, one of the scummiest industries out there. I mean, I always put probably way too high percentage on it, but maybe not. Like, you know, I say 99% of the people in that business are often scumbags just looking to take advantage of somebody.
Correct.
And, you know, the person we have in common, Chaz, who worked in that industry, I witnessed and works in it. I've witnessed it up close for a few years, because he is so conscious of that it has cost him business sometimes. And what ends up happening is guys end up coming back to him like, oh, I should have gone with you in the first place.
Yep.
Because he's not going to be like making promises that are ridiculous or coming out and just looking for a handout on things, because he understands, and he was an athlete himself, not at professional, but in college at D1.
Yep.
Like, he understands what these guys deal with. And, you know, to hear somebody recognize that and then want to then use their second career to be a part of being the solution there as somebody who literally is that guy, it's pretty cool. But then to bring in someone who's outside that world, who he really felt checked every box of actually getting it, it says a lot to you, because those guys, and I don't blame them, they don't trust a lot of them.
You're right.
You know, the younger ones do, and they get in trouble, sadly. But, like, I don't have a problem with that. I get it. Like, and that's why, like, in my career, when you'd go to talk to these guys, I never went there. Like, it just wasn't. I remember we had one, because I was a banker. So we had one guy, and it was a guy my boss got the relationship with, who was a pro athlete, and he was really cool. But it's almost like uncomfortable, because you know all the horror stories these guys deal with, and it's just this elephant in the room every time. And sadly, you almost just don't want to touch it, because you're like, if I were in this guy's shoes, fuck, I would never trust somebody on this side of it. You know?
Absolutely. And I think too, it's like especially guys that make it in professional sports where there's a lot of money involved. It's like their whole life like changes overnight. Mm-hmm. You know, family, how they're treated and looked at from a family standpoint. You know, they have a lot of hard decisions and a lot of hard conversations that they have to have, even with their main foundation of family members that now think that they are entitled to something, right? And it's not that, you know. And also too, anything that they're involved with, you know, is under the microscope. And one of the conversations that I've had with a lot of these athletes is like, these agents are very transactional. They're very about the numbers. They're where the money's at, like where the easy money's at, like in the contract with the franchise, with the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, they're not going to be spending the bulk of their time hustling, grinding the phones, trying to find where those opportunities are for them to do things outside of the sport. And that's kind of like where we have carved out a niche. And it's all my whole thing. What I always was always out in the forefront of me is the relationship. That's what's most important. So a lot of times, like we have a new client, like Vinny Carey, for example, played for the Eagles for a while.
Neptune guy.
Yeah. And he's now with the Jets. I mean, my first few weeks, it was just researching as much information and getting to know him as much as I possibly could. I literally like text and called the guy nonstop, just developing a relationship and trying to absorb as much, being a sponge, trying to absorb as much information so that way I could develop like a relationship. We didn't even talk business. It was just all relationship. And that's kind of how I've onboarded all of these clients and developed these relationships with people was like, I truly care about them and I want them to be successful. The way my mind thinks and the way that the last 15 years of my life have gone, I already have an advantage over the next guy because they know that I'm in it for the right reasons and I've successfully built an nonprofit organization.
That's
so
huge.
the trust
huge.
factor, before I even had my first conversation with these guys, the fact that I have that and Trent.
That's what I was going to say. The second
like,
part is that.
Boom.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, now we're at the point now where like, we have guys reaching out to us, but we're trying to find the right athlete or the right influencer that is willing to buy in to us and kind of leave the history that they've had behind them, because some of these guys do have their guards up. They have had bad experiences, or they want to have control, and we want them to be a part of the process, but we have a system in place that works, and we want to make sure that we could have the freedom to do that, because in the end, and you're right, because we've had this experience a little bit where some guys are like, nah, now they're coming around saying, okay, you know what I mean? Kind of like what you just said without Chaz, where some of these guys might decline us, and even with guys that we're working with, initially we're like, nah, but now the things that we were requesting are now coming in and they're flowing in. So it's a process and it's time.
It's huge when they see, because obviously, and this isn't one of those silent partnership things, like Trent's on the ground there with you and how you operate. It's huge, and this is no disrespect to you, but it's huge to have that in there as well, because then they know they have one of their own kind in there, somebody who's been there, done that, gets that, he trusts you, he works directly with you, he's involved in everything too. So there's a comfortability there that it's cool to see that as well, because it's like the circle of life. You see, I'm almost surprised that you don't see as much of that. Like, I appreciate when you hear about former players becoming agents and stuff, which is a rare type of occurrence. They get it. You know, they were on the other side of that phone. The management business, I'd like to see more of that too, because they were on the other side of that phone. But the second thing I wanted to raise a couple minutes ago that strikes me on this, because you kind of insinuated it, but maybe I heard it wrong, is the whole like finding the purpose thing. And I'd love to talk to Trent about this himself as well, but you know, I'm always blown away by great athletes, especially like ones who have a long career, but even the ones who have a shorter career that have been doing it their whole life. It's like you get to the pinnacle of your profession, and it's one of the rare things where when you're starting to maybe even enter your prime as like an adult, let alone like your career, technically this career is ending. You know, guys, they lose that step at 32, 33, and it starts to, then they got to retire by 35, a lot of them, if they last that long, right? And so then it stops, right? Like every single day, 6-7 days a week for years. It's like, and everything's scheduled. I have this workout. I work with this guy. We have
every
this
3 minutes are controlled.
Yes. So now suddenly you not only go away from the thing you love or came to love, whatever it is. You also now don't, you know, you're free with your day and everything. And now you're like, well, I'm also young. I'm vital. I got a lot of shit going on. I have a lot of great connections from what I did. A lot of these guys are also very smart guys interested in other things, but they're like, what the fuck do I do with my life? I also, and if they were smart with their money, like Trent, they have a lot of money now too, and they're like, well, what is there to it? You know what I mean?
So most professional athletes are in financial hardships within 3 years of retirement. And the average career of a professional athlete is like 2 to 3 years. What we're trying to do on the athlete side is, and we can't be everything to everyone, but like, I want to replicate what Trent did. Trent's first, and when he first got paid, he bought a real estate property. He didn't, you know
not
what I mean?
For himself.
Not for
an investment.
Investment property.
Brilliant.
He knew exactly, he had his whole thing planned out while he was active. And what I see in these guys is they might have the financial advisor and they might be invested, but they don't necessarily have a plan for beyond football. So what do they do? Or beyond football, like what their sport is. Like they'll try to hold on to that sport for as long as they possibly physically can. Not obviously to make, they already have the money, but it's like they don't know what's next. And they're scared shitless. So like trying to have strategic sessions and conversations and planning around that, they say, okay, like your playing career, you're on the other side of this. So what's next for you? And we want to help you figure that out. And however we fit in that, we fit. But like we're in the business to help. And it's about the relationship. And it's been interesting because a lot of these conversations initially are hard. They're hard conversations that you're having with people that have found like a lot of success, and they're looking at you like, "Who are you?" But at the same time, it's like
the guard's up too.
The guard's up too. But eventually, that conversation changes, and they start to realize that we have an invested interest in them, and we want what's in their best interest, and we want to help them figure out what's next. And also, Max, it's very, very important, especially on the athlete side. Like these guys are active. They have the following online. They have the attention of they have opportunities flowing in, but they don't necessarily vet those opportunities out because they don't have the time or the bandwidth, and also too they have the attention of the fans. So let's figure out what's next for you while you're actively playing and you're at the height of everything. So that way, in a few years from now, whatever it is, whether it's a year or 10 years, you have that next part of your life figured out. If not, it turns to drugs, drinking, gambling, financial, they're done.
You gotta
bankrupt.
You gotta replace that thing.
Yep.
And it's almost bizarre. Some of the last people you would have expected it from because they were so locked in. And an example that comes to mind that obviously had a sad ending is like a Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was locked and loaded for 20 years.
Yep.
Didn't do much else, but very quietly, especially in the last few years of his career, in the off seasons, just began to pay attention to a few things, was very interested in venture capital, and said, okay, I'm going to learn it all when I get out, but let me get the early stuff. And so when he left the league, machine. He obviously no one was behind closed doors with him. I'm sure there were still times where it's like, shit, I don't do that anymore. But like he was building a venture capital company. Fucking guy won an Oscar. Did all he filled that he fulfilled a lot of that void, and then was so active in his kid's life and everything as well. And it's like you see that and you're like, oh, that's great. How many athletes do that? And they don't have to be a legend like Kobe Bryant. I'm saying like how many solid athletes come out and then they're like, oh, I got it figured out. Not many, man. And I get it. It's hard. And when I say I get it, I was never there. But like from the outside, that like, oh, they're living for this. And now it's like, well, that's gone.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I mean, if you look at Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
I mean, his one agent, I think, locked away his Reebok contract till he was like 55.
Give that guy a Medal of Honor.
But like that guy blew through. I read up. I'm very interested in. I do a lot of research and reading on people and how they became successful, whatever their success is, and the journey along the way and how they got there and the different things. But like he used to apparently, from what I read,
I know. Say this.
He would never even like pack luggage to a trip. He had an entourage of like 50 plus people that traveled. He would literally buy himself and everyone's stuff every time they went to a new city, and like. The guy is
they'd leave it in the hotel room
and just leave it. Yeah, and like that's just mind-boggling to think about. But but he had so much. I mean, look at some of the musicians like Nelly, and look at DMX when he passed away. He's in Michael Jackson. Like it's crazy to think about how much money and debt these people are in because of decisions they made, and because they didn't have the right people behind them. And that's kind of the equation. Like I'm looking to try to. I know Trent and I in ProVantage can't serve everybody, but if we could help these guys and whatever that is, whether it's within their nonprofit or whether it's in a new venture that they want to explore, or whether it's helping them even with their current marketing to make sure that it's up to par, so that way they can monetize deals. Like these a lot of the stuff that we're doing is brand ambassador stuff. So like these guys have built credibility within their sport. They have a platform, they have following. They could sell to that audience because there's people like them. Like their fans worship them, especially Philadelphia sports fans. So where are their interests, where are their passions? And we work with them to identify brands, and we reach out to brands on their behalf to see if there's an invested interest or some type of marketing that we can align them with. And then we vet that opportunity for them and present it to them to see if there's something they want to move on or not.
Well, the guys are getting during their career still, though, too. That's it's good that you do, like you can get to them and have those conversations and push them, because again, as I said a few minutes ago, like they're so focused on that career while they're doing it. And yes, that needs to be their priority, just like Kobe had it. But I don't think when they're so locked into that, guys appreciate, I don't want to say appreciate, I don't think they realize how valuable it is that everywhere they go, just with their team, there is a camera on them. Now, are people watching TV? No, but they are watching live sports. But outside of that, all those cameras and all those TV feeds go right on the social media. So it's the same shit. And the second you retire, you could be Kobe, you could be a solid starter. It's gone. There's no one following you around your kids, your house with your kids. There's no one following you around to your office for your family office downtown. No one gives a fuck. So now that currency, and like a legend can kind of get away with it, obviously, but like that currency of that attention for even like a great player, gone.
I know. It's so true. I mean, and that's part of the uphill battle that we're working with them on. You know, some naturally, you know, we'll get into sports. They'll become like an analyst or something like that. But a lot of these guys, they really don't know what's next for them, and that's kind of scary. You know what I mean, to think about, because they've achieved so much success in their sport, and then like they're hanging on. Eventually, they get injured, and they're one injury away from like a career-ending, you know, situation. And like I said, I mean, we're there to try to be a support system. You know what I mean? And we do that through business management services, through marketing, and through sponsorship, and basically trying to figure out, like, literally having like vision conversations, which is actually, believe it or not, a huge. I'm very big in strategy. That's one of my strengths, is vision, strategy, things like that. I could see, for some reason, I have the ability. I've done it with HEADStrong. Like that's one of my strengths. I've been analyzed through testing and things like that, and I have the ability to visualize things, and vision is one of my key strengths. So trying to carry that over to them, to let them see, like, and the other thing too is like they do have a lot of opportunities at their fingertips, and it's a matter of trying to figure out, okay, which one do we activate on, because and does that align with what you really truly want to be doing next, or can we start that now? And then that transitions you to that next chapter. You know, these guys, they don't really get a lot of time off. And when they're off, they're with their family. You know what I mean? And they also need to turn it off so that way they could actually be somewhat, you know, balanced from a mental health standpoint, you know?
It is, you know what, though? One thing I do want to push back on to have this conversation, because it's interesting. Yes, they do have a lot of things at their fingertips, and that continues to happen. You see, the world is run on marketing on socials, and these guys have attention on socials. Agreed. But the competition for attention, not just with the rise of content and the number of places and quick attention people can give stuff on various platforms, the competition for the number of people in society who get attention is much, much more than it was 15 years ago. And I'll give you, I know you know that, but just to put it, for the listeners, to put a visual on what I mean by that. Let's take a guy who was like a really good Eagles player, who was popular, but maybe not like a superstar around the world.
Brent Selleck.
All right, that's a good one.
Great tight end.
No, actually it's not, because Brent was really involved in the community.
He was.
And he has a very good regional presence that way. Not that the guy I'm going to say doesn't, but not to the level Brent did with a bar and everything, like all that.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Trotter. Let's name him.
Yeah.
So Jeremiah Trotter was a 5-time Pro Bowler for the Eagles, phenomenal linebacker, one of my favorite players.
Same.
Great guy all the way around. Like, if Jeremiah Trotter walked into a Wawa 15 years ago, people, especially in the Philly area, people are going to be like, holy fuck, that's Jeremiah Trotter. Right? Today, that still might, like, let's say he was active today, right? And was at the height of his game. That's still going to happen a little bit. Some people will get a video, maybe. Some people will take a selfie. But it's more run of the mill. And the reason I say that is because 15 years ago, an influencer who traveled around the world and took pictures of themselves did not have 2 million followers, let alone a platform to even do anything. And now they're fucking famous. And they're all held, like, no matter what you do, athlete, influencer, entertainer, celebrity, comedian, whatever, it's all a part of the same thing. And that thing is the time out of 24 hours of a day, 17 of which people are actually awake, that people can allocate to you. So even like bigger athletes, I'm not talking to legends, I'm talking like guys who are really solid names, even on like a regional basis like that. there's going to be less of that star factor because, by the way, when you go to their Instagram bio, maybe they have 120,000 followers, but this jerk off over here making videos down the street has 750.
Yep.
So who's more popular in the eyes of the 17, 16-year-old kid who's driving the market?
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think, too, it goes to the reason why I decided to move forward with ProVantage and focusing on the athlete side is these guys have the opportunity to build their brands right by using platforms like podcasting, like social media platforms, like their website. Like, they need to be active online. You know, like, there was some athletes, I was doing some like data research. I was looking at some athletes that are like stars on their team and like haven't posted social media in like 6 months. And I was just like, it was eating me alive, saying like, do you realize the opportunity that you have if you just post a picture or a video? Like, your fans go bullshit over it. Like, it's not like it's hard. Why are you not doing that? And can we help you do that? You know, because in exchange for that, like, my whole thing is like, what can we monetize so that way you're not touching your football money, you're not touching your professional sport money. That's in your investments. That's saved. Like, that's being invested.
That's what Gronkowski did, right?
Let's figure out what we could. I mean, Gronkowski did that. What are they? That Chaz is involved with. The
NFTs.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, but he. I think I may have him backed up. One of them, either his salary or all of his endorsement money.
You're right.
He's never touched one of them.
You're right. Yeah.
And now some other guys do that too.
Yeah.
So I like that you.
But like
that
if you actually Google the endorsement money, a lot of these athletes, especially the superstars, are making more off the endorsements than they are actually with their sport. Like, LeBron James is a perfect example.
Sure.
Right. The other thing is to give height and light to micro level influence actually have. So what we're seeing is a lot of brands, instead of, there's only so many Michael Jordans, LeBron James, Tom Brady's, not every brand can be Nike and fund that big contract. So what a lot of these other guys are doing is they're working with people like ProVantage, and they're spreading out their marketing budgets over 30 micro level influencers versus one big monster whale, right? So we're able to maximize that for our athletes to say, okay, we have this portfolio of athletes. They're all over the place. Like, some are incredible, like superstars, and some are just micro level guys.
Who are some of the guys you work with, if you don't mind me asking?
So Trent and I are kind of like confidential about who we're working with and things like that, just because, you know, so for us, our standpoint, it has to make sense. It's got to be a good fit, but those micro level influencers that have 100,000 followers on Instagram are actually just entitled to the guys that, you know, are the mega influencers, because these brands are like, we don't have that we can't pay LeBron James, and we can never be Nike, but we have an incredible apparel line and we have marketing money. We allocated $5 million towards marketing. So let's take $1 million and spread it over 15 influencers. So these athletes have a platform that they need to be activating on to make money. You know what I mean? Why not? You know, but they also need support underneath them. They can't do it themselves. So that's kind of the niche. A lot of stuff that we're doing is brand ambassador stuff, influencer marketing stuff within the athletes, getting them aligned with brands, and then moving them into their marketing. So if there's activation on events, you know, where they could be, you know, like I'm working on an event right now where I spend a lot of time working with guys that are retired. That are Philadelphia-based athletes, working with companies in the greater Philadelphia area that are doing like private parties for their clients. You know, like I'm working with a group right now that's a big, it's a global company. They've brought me on to basically get former professional athletes in Philadelphia area there for they're bringing it. They're having like a convention essentially for all of their clients. They're in the automotive industry, and they're and they want to have a private party at Xfinity Live. So I'm working with them, and I've already secured like all these professional former Philadelphia Eagles, because it's an Eagles party. And I've secured like 4 or 5 professional athletes that used to play for the Eagles that they asked me to get. So like guys that are even retired, have been out 15, 20 years, still have opportunities
Sure.
to for them to make an appearance, to sign autographs, to join. Like every day, I manage Trent stuff, every day he's got like a dozen podcasters. He's asking them to come on, and he's open to, like, he's the type of guy like, I'll do it. Let's go. Like, he's just, that's just how he rolls. Not everyone's like that, but so like there's always opportunities on the table for sure for these guys, and the biggest opportunities is when they're active, and that's when we need to be taking advantage. They need to be taking advantage of those opportunities, because that could land them into that next stage.
Sure.
And that's kind of the thought process that I've been trying to preach to these guys. We got to think bigger. We got to take time out, remove yourself from the sport, and let's put the thinking caps on from a business standpoint and talk about where are you at in 3, 5, 10, years. We know where you're at, family. We know where you're at right now, but what's next for you? And they're not always easy conversations to have, but at the same time, like, they're necessary. And on the other side is what's awesome is when we're working with a brand or a company and we can align the influencer with the company.
Oh yeah.
Which is something that we're doing a lot recently. There's a technology company that we're involved with. They also sponsor Trent, but we're now talking to them about filtering in some other like athletes because they want to tap into other sports. So we actually have a really unique proposal on the table right now that we're exploring with them. But like, if we could continue to build upon our relationships on the company and brand side and continue to build our roster and portfolio of athletes, and the more that they interchange, the more successful everyone's going to be. And it's a really unique concept, that we're exploring there.
Now, do you really, I don't know if push is the word, but obviously you have your heavy own experience with running your own nonprofit and everything, but do you impress upon these guys to find causes that they're passionate about, to work that into a big part of what they do, or does that more need to really come from them and, it's not for you to say?
It's different across the board. Some guys already have foundations established. Some guys have funds that aren't necessarily nonprofits but act as nonprofits. You'd be surprised. So we only know like what we experience or see or learn, right? A lot of these guys are actually very active in giving back, but they're quiet about it because, and that's something that I've learned over since January, like really having a lot of conversations. Most of these guys do stuff, but they don't advertise it because they don't want to be everyone knocking on the door asking for, hey, can you help me here? Hey, can you help me there? Because they're already getting that to begin with. So now they just kind of, it's out the back door. They're a lot of them are involved with the universities they went to, or maybe a disease or some type of philanthropic effort that they were touched by. You know what I mean? And they're all different based on kind of how they are registered upstairs, as far as how they want to go about and navigate things. But for the most part, everyone that I've been involved with, like I'll give you an example. Like Corey Anderson is a Bellator fighter that we represent and we work with. And he's very big into the outdoors. Real big into the outdoors. So he
client at Trent's big into the outdoors. Come on.
So like Corey's big on mentoring like the youth to get active in the outdoors. He's a big believer, and that keeps kids out of trouble. So like he'll take a kid. He was just explaining on an interview the other day I was listening to. Like he takes kids to the hunting store and gets them outfitted in a bow and like takes them out and shows them how to shoot it and takes them out and shows them how to basically go about the outdoors.
That's so cool. Like, I've never heard that. That's a new one. Yeah, I like that.
So like, and everyone's different. Some people it's around their family. Other people it's around helping others. Some it's around a disease that maybe they might be affected by. Things like that. Some grew up with in unfortunate circumstances and they want to help the youth. Like Vinny Carey, who's a client, he's very active in giving back to like underprivileged kids. He runs free football camps. He does stuff where he donates backpacks to kids going back to school. He does a lot. Like he did in before COVID, he did a couple like really cool social like gala events where he did like a party for kids, and he limoed them in to the city and did this big thing. So like, and he's always very active with giving back. A lot of these guys, they do that because it keeps them grounded, but also at the same time, they don't like plaster it all over like, hey, look at me kind of a thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're quiet about it, and that's something that I've learned.
Not to I don't want to rip people who do announce all the things they do philanthropically, because I appreciate that they do that. But, obviously some guys out of necessity don't want to publicize, as you said, some things because they don't want everyone calling them up, because obviously there's still limited budgets with anyone, regardless of how much money you make. But yeah, the guys who are also doing it because they don't need to draw attention to it. It's something that gives them a greater purpose to what they've been able to build and what they've been able to accomplish. I always love hearing that. I've heard some stories behind the scenes, and I don't want to defeat the purpose and say names, but I don't know any of these guys, but I've heard some crazy stories that are first-degree stories, like someone who is directly involved with them, from some of the biggest athletes in the world who even sometimes, like, the media gets on them because they don't like a few of the things they do, like as a personality. And I just, sometimes I wish you could tell them, because you hear these things they do, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. And, I really, really appreciate that from these guys, because a lot of them, they understand they're the 1%, and their job that they got to do, even though all the things that come with it that are hard, like, they do get to do the thing that most kids at some point in their life growing up, even if just for a moment, dream about being in one of the 4 major sports leagues.
Yep.
Right? And then they make it. And so when you see guys carry that responsibility back to the community, I mean, it's just awesome to me. So I like that you guys are impressing upon that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we always try to make it a part. I look at it as a pizza. You got 8 slices. I think some type of community initiative or charity should be a part of the slice, of one of the slices for sure. Because I think, believe it or not, like, I've talked to a couple of my buddies that are big into like the former world that you were in, and there's actually there was a I think it was a New York Giant. He was telling me about, like, my buddy who's a financial advisor. They had a guy come in who was with the Jets and signed a big deal, and he didn't really have a portfolio established yet. Nor did he have a nonprofit or anything like that. So they got him set up in his portfolio. They launched a nonprofit. Next, like, one of the biggest healthcare networks in New York City signed him and also made significant contributions back to his charity as part of the contract. So there's there's gold right within these initiatives by just launching a nonprofit. So it's like, you just never know. And it's just a good thing to do, because these folks, these guys, they have a platform, they have the attention of people, and they have the capacity to, like, change lives, overnight. So it's definitely part of, and me and my history being in a nonprofit, I started from the ground up. You know what I mean? These guys have the ability just to write the check if they really wanted to. So, and everyone, like I said, they're all different as far as how they want to go about, announcing or promoting it. Some are loud and clear, and some are kind of, quiet behind closed doors.
Well, the other thing that naturally comes to mind on, figuring out the full portfolio of these guys is also, I guess I'll just use the word, like, activism on things, because, I feel like today, first of all, I think it's a great thing that athletes can use their platform for things they're passionate about, and even politically. As long as, like, they're respectful of people who disagree and aren't evil for doing so, I'm good with it. And I think we should encourage that in a lot of ways. That said, like anything else, there's negatives that come with it. And a lot of guys behind the scenes feel pressured to feel certain types of ways about things, and then they don't want to talk about it, if they feel differently, which is sad to see, because I feel like we're losing discussion in society. And let's be honest, this is way outside the athlete world too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious for this directly, but when you're talking with a lot of these guys, is a part of the strategy really looking into, like, okay, here's things we want to avoid. I don't ever want to touch that kind of issue right there. I want to stay away from this kind of PR nightmare, because, even if I feel a certain way, like, I don't want to open that up to the public. I want to keep my personal life / my professional life separate from, like, opinions, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we most of these guys, like, we look for a specific client, somebody that meets, like, our core values, and also, like, the fact that we have, like, Trent, a lot of times already has established relationships with the people that we're working with. So we already know who they are, how they, like, what their reputation is, and kind of like what they represent at large before we start working with them. We do have discussions about, with them, but at the same time, like, it's freedom of speech. They technically, I mean, they could do whatever they want.
Yes.
We do have discussions on it. We do have a partner, LifeBrand, which is a company. It's a software company that, and TJ does a fabulous job in educating folks on when you're online, you have to be responsible for what you're posting and what you're pushing out, and things that maybe you posted in the past could come back and haunt you, whether it's getting a job, whether it's getting an opportunity. I mean, you see it now. I mean, people stepping down from things that they did.
Some of that's bullshit, though. I'm sorry. I got to say this, because not just like, you're not just referring to things that are happening like, oh, we said it 2 years ago while I was active. We're talking about things kids say when they're 15 now that they dig up when they were like in 2009 or 2010. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I think like people can change, right? And people can grow and get better and become more aware and educated on specific topics, and as long as they have a choice to change in that positive direction, then I agree with you. We're not all perfect. What's interesting about LifeBrand, and I'll give them a plug, TJ software allows you to basically, it screens your social media. So within the click of a mouse, you plug in your social media handles, right? They give you a report of everything that you've posted online. Ever. And it also tells you if it's profanity, if it's racist, and you have within the click of a mouse, it's like $14. I think it's very, very cost effective. You can delete everything instantly.
$14.
I swear to God, dude, it's crazy. So they're one of
I want an affiliate link. I'm gonna start pushing that one big time. That's amazing.
And you should have TJ on, because he's a great guy, and he's a great.
That is cool.
If you look at, he's advertising and he's developed partnerships with like the Sixers, the Phillies, the Eagles. He's all over the place right now in a good way. From an advertising standpoint, he's doing great things. But we're partnered with him, and he does a great job in educating us on the do's and the don'ts and things like that, representation online, essentially. But give LifeBrand a check and check them out. It's a really unique software company that could save a lot of people.
You should make that
careers.
You should make that a requirement. So like for your guys coming on, like $14 now, please.
We do advise those folks to look into that. And the thing is like, we're more, and that's in that realm, like. Some of these guys are controlling over what they want. Some people hand it all off to us and say, run with it. Others are like, you push it to me, I'll post it on my social media kind of a stuff. So everything that we do at ProVantage, whether it's on the business front or the athlete front, is customized to the actual client, if that makes sense. So, and it all depends on the relationship and how they want to go about business. Is really how we customize it. We don't have like, hey, these are our rates and this is what we do. It's like everything we do is tailored to the client and where we're going to be going. And to be honest with you, when we first start our conversations, we don't even talk money. We don't even talk what we're going to do for them. We just try to learn who they are and discover. It's a discovery session. We take weeks to discover them. We research them. I even put a presentation together and I present to them. So it's much more about. It's not looking at them as a price tag. It's trying to identify who they are and where they're going to be heading and trying to have them think that way. Because for so long, especially on the athlete side, and I talk a lot to that, but like these guys, everything's been, like you said, like every 3 minutes are controlled. Mm-hmm. This is where you need to be. This is when you need to be there. This is the play you're running. This is the thing you're doing. We try to like advise them, but at the end of the day, it's their decision, it's their brand, if that makes sense. But we're there to help them. So that's kind of where we're at with that side, which is cool. But this is the other interesting thing of this. These guys, they're all invested in other companies. So naturally, what does that do?
What do you mean?
So like these guys, they have ownership in other companies.
Like athletes in their own.
So like the athletes take their money that they earn from their career and they invest it not only into like their portfolio, but they'll invest into startups, they'll invest into companies. Yes. So what's that do for us? If we develop a good enough relationship with them, we then get in the door to handle the marketing for their company. Or if there's specific projects, it trickles back down to us. If we do our job right and we execute things the right way, the opportunities start to flow in. You know what I mean? Perfect example is like with my business owner. We're working with a bunch of different companies that he's involved with. He has his ownership stake in. You know what I mean? Because he's invested into it. So there's opportunities that are I call them skydivers. They're just flying through the ceiling. You know what I mean? And then us vetting it out to see where we fit. There's like a new startup, like it's a software company in the city of Philadelphia that came through one of our clients that I have a meeting with on Monday. You know, so it's like, it's just really interesting to see how these two sectors
come together,
coming together and overlapping, and they should support one another, trickle. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the vision of ProVantage. Is like we have the athlete side, and we have the company's brands that we work with, that we support, and together those two verticals should grow. And also, there's going to be some overlapping in the middle too.
So, do you guys? This is how it seems to me, but correct me if I'm wrong. Do you guys have the vision of you're going to build out, like, let's focus on the athlete side real quick. You're going to build out a company that is a full-blown athlete management company, so competing with the CAAs of the world and stuff like that, like their management side?
We do not want to be a sport agent, so we want nothing.
Not agency,
not
the management
agency.
side.
Yeah, so we want to have a portfolio, a balanced portfolio of different athletes, of different genders, of different ages, of different demographics. So that way, and the whole thing, like my long-term vision is to sell the whole roster. So because that's going to give us more leverage. Like we can go to a bigger brand and say, hey, listen, you work with us, you get all this, top to bottom. You know, guys that are the pinnacle in their career and guys that are just starting out and representing and connecting with different audiences and things like that, different communities of people. Like the long-term vision is to take the roster and everybody eats. The whole roster eats. We all help each other. You know what I mean? That's my vision there. But it takes time to vet out the right people, to get them on the team, to show them our value and how we're there to help them. And like I talked earlier in the podcast, this is a marathon, not a sprint. In 15, 20 years from now, this company is going to be rocking. And we should have that. And eventually we'll get investment behind it and things like that. But right now, it's just laying the groundwork. I always talk about wherever you go, drop a seed, because you never know what's going to grow from it. You know what I mean? So always out there, just talking to people, explaining to them what we're doing. That's why I like this podcast. I just met you today for the first time, but like it was an opportunity to come on here, share my story, tell people what we're doing on the foundation side, tell people what we're doing on the ProVantage side. And who knows, a listener might be listening to this and might have a product or a brand that might be involved with something, and boom, it goes from there. You know?
And what's interesting is...
Or they might want to donate.
And,
you know?
And that's like the story before any of this, before ProVantage and all that. Like that's my favorite thing in doing this. When I have people who, it could be anything, right? It could be something like that, or it could be just like something that happened to them recently, when they come in here and share that, because you don't know where it's going to go, and you gain some kind of crazy new perspective, and it's a very personal thing. But you know, when I bring guys in, my goal the whole time is to just shoot the shit and talk about stuff going on, right? And we'll weave in society, and then where things can genuinely come in or just naturally kind of come in with what they're doing, to be able to speak about that. Obviously, like HEADStrong is an obvious one. It's a nonprofit. Everyone should hear about that. But like with their business and stuff. Great. I'll have a lot of podcasts though where we never even mention that, and then people are hitting me up like, hey, that guy I see in his bio, he does this. Can I go work with him? I love that. When it gets to the point though where it's like everything tied together as it did with you, I don't mind having a long time where it's almost like the last half hour has been like a reel for ProVantage, but you guys are unique because of the setup. You're unique, as we said. You're unique because Trent's on the inside there, and obviously like you have a sustained example of when you say like, yo, it's a marathon, you can point to 15 years of going from t-shirts to 20 mil, right? And doing it in a very hard and emotional space too. So it's like people can get that credibility from that. And I like giving that a platform a lot. I mean, you know, like I said, I'm a sucker for the story, and the story is pretty cool, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. It's been great.
So listen, I do got to say this. I never forget anybody who helps me out. Like that's something I pride myself on. But, you know, behind the scenes, you did me a huge favor today because I got really, really fucked over the last week by a couple people who I didn't know, and lesson learned, whatever. But, you know, I appreciate you coming in to give me an episode this week. That was a lifesaver. And so whatever I can do to help, 100% there. I would love to get involved with HEADStrong. That's an amazing, amazing story. And I'm excited to see what you and Trent do here, because obviously it's still early on, but, you know, as I just said, it is a unique value proposition in that specific industry.
Yep. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And just goes along with who I am, about helping people out. So I'm glad I was able to come on. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and just share my story.
Dude, I'm glad I'm surprised it was your first podcast. It's not, you're good. I was very surprised when you said I used to be an introvert, and your brother said you got to find your voice, because you'd never, like, you're a very like energetic guy. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, and I'll just share one quick thing. So after my brother passed, a lot of media wanted to, because we were both, you know, division NCAA athletes and things like that. There was a lot of like press around Nick's fight, right? Mm-hmm. And then the foundation was born, and like there was, I'll never forget, like I neglected to do interviews with ESPN, Inside Lacrosse, like some big, trying to think of the one group up in New York. There was like a big media company that wanted. Eventually, I gave in, but like for the longest time, like I was like, nah, that's not happening. You know what I mean? But I'll never forget my first interview was in the locker room, and from that day on, I started to like believe in myself and what Nick told me about finding your voice. So if there's anybody out there listening, you know, don't need to be the you don't need to be the center of attention, but feel free to speak up for what you believe in. You know what I mean? And make sure when you speak, it has value behind it. Just don't talk to talk. You know what I mean? So.
Well, you do, man. 100%. So listen, thank you again.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. And where can people follow you or get involved with the organization? And I'll put any links, obviously, like in the description as well.
Yeah, I mean, websites, headstrong.org, ProVantageSolutions.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Not really, huge into TikTok, but I just got like an account on there, so I'm gonna start looking into that. That's another vehicle. I know you're big into that stuff, so you sparked my interest there. For me, it's like I can't be on every platform. You know what I mean? So I'm very visual. So Instagram is very appealing to me because of the photography and the videography, the quality of stuff on there. I just love it. It pleases my mind, you know. But we'll give TikTok some love as well.
All right, we'll work on it. But thank you again, dude.
Yeah, no
really
problem.
Appreciate this. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me.